So announcement to start, if you want to earn CE for attendance at this board meeting, please see Dixie Van Allen back in the corner. In order to receive CE, you're required to stay for the entire duration of the board meeting. This is a public meeting of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners. The date is August 9th, 2018, and the time is 9:07. The location is the Bristol Hotel, 1055 First Avenue, City Scene Room, San Diego, California, 92101. The board's paramount responsibility is to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public through licensure, education, and enforcement in chiropractic care. Please be aware that this meeting is being audio and video recorded for live webcast. Please turn off or silence all cell phones. We will now take roll call. Dr. Azzolino, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Dane?
Here.
Dr. Lickman?
Here.
Dr. Azzolino present. Mr. Rufino, I just noticed that he had a family emergency and will not be present today. And Dr. McLean?
Present.
And Dr. Gordon? Dr. Gordon is not present.
Thank you. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Judge Adam Berg.
All right, thank you. Ms. McMillan, or Dr. McMillan.
Oh.
I sit here?
Yeah. All right, we'll go on the record for this case. This is the matter of the petition for early termination of probation for Michelle McMillan. It's OH number 2018-06-1125. Today's date is August 9, 2018, for the held in San Diego. Before a quorum of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners, Adam Berg, Administrative Law Judge from the State's Office of Administrative Hearings, presiding over the hearing, would be Deputy Attorney General. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. Cara Ramey, Deputy Attorney General on behalf of the people of the state of California.
Thank you. And Dr. McMillan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You're representing yourself today.
I am.
All right. The way this will work is the Attorney General will give a brief overview of the disciplinary history of your case. Then there will be an opportunity to present to the board members why you believe that your probation should be terminated early. You can also present any other evidence and call any witnesses. The board will then, after hearing all the cases today, go into closed session and decide the case, and you will receive a written decision in the mail as soon as possible. All right, if you have questions that come up during the hearing, let me know. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to the Attorney General.
Thank you.
Good morning. As I said, Deputy Attorney General on behalf of the people of the state of California. We're here for the petition of early termination of probation for Michelle McMillan. Her background is Dr. McMillan was licensed as a chiropractor beginning in 1993, and she was placed on a 3-year probation in 2016 pursuant to a stipulated settlement. The stipulation agreed to violations of beyond the scope of practice for her roles in allegedly managing medication, moral turpitude, dishonesty, and corruption regarding reports, gross negligence, unprofessional conduct, responsibility for conduct on premises, and failure to file address. These violations arose out of her employment by a medical doctor where she was seeing patients by Skype and directing medication management, but not actually acting in the role of a chiropractor. Her probation is due to end May 2019, and she seeks early termination. It is her burden, of course, to establish that she should have early termination. The petition package has been submitted, and I would ask, I guess, that we put that as Exhibit 1 for jurisdictional purposes and whatever purposes are necessary. And I have nothing further at this time other than perhaps questioning the respondent at the end.
All right, thank you. The petition packet and attached documents will be Exhibit 1. Dr. McMillan, if you would raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. You swear or affirm the testimony you'll be giving will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay. This is your opportunity to tell the board what you think it needs to know.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And I'm requesting an early end to my probation for a few reasons. The first of which is that I've very diligently examined how I got to this place, and have, I feel, taken as many corrective actions as I could. And at this point, continuing probation is presenting a financial hardship, and it's difficult to get a job as a chiropractor, and also difficult to obtain malpractice insurance.
Is there any questions?
Oh, for me? Okay. Well, some of the questions I'd like to know is, when did you stop working at Dr. Smith's practice?
I stopped working at the end of 2015.
And do you want to explain to us what you mean by right now it's a hardship?
Well, I have called a couple of offices that are hiring and let them know that I'm on probation, and they've just told me they don't hire people on probation.
And what type of chiropractic work are you doing right now, if any?
I see patients. Basically, I just friends at home. I don't work out of an office, so it's like 0 to 1 patient a week. I recently did have the opportunity to work in a clinic, which I did obtain the satellite office certificate for. But they're also in a position where they haven't had a chiropractor there, so it's very slow. It's not a full income.
And when you say a clinic, what type of a clinic is this?
It's a chiropractic clinic. Like a healthcare clinic, so they have acupuncture, chiropractic, massage.
Do they also have medical doctors in this
No.
clinic? So other than seeing friends or family once a week, you have no other experience with chiropractic work since your probation started, is that right?
Yeah, just the chiropractic that I do.
And do you feel you're ready to go back to full-time work?
I do.
What have you done to keep yourself current in the industry?
Well, I do all of my relicensing. I do all of the seminars, and I'm sure you're aware there's a whole range of chiropractic seminars out there, and I make sure I go to one that's taught by one of my former teachers from Cleveland, where we go over X-ray and CT and MRI, talk about what's current in the industry, and there's always a real technique portion.
And I believe you said in your petition that you're actually not doing any reading of any literature, or you haven't read any?
Not chiropractic literature. I'm an athlete and a triathlete, so I've actually been studying a lot about sports nutrition, and some ethics reading.
And if you go work in this clinic, would you be the only chiropractor in the clinic?
Yes.
Would that be the only place that you intend to work at this time?
That, and then seeing some people at my home.
Do you think it would be beneficial to you to work in a clinic maybe that had other chiropractors, since you've been out of the mainstream for a while?
Possibly. That's not really an option for me at this time because of the probation.
Other than the one clinic that talked about perhaps hiring you, but you're on probation and that's a difficulty, were there any others that you sought employment at that said they would essentially hire you if you weren't on probation?
I don't know that I understand the question.
Did you look for employment at any other clinics?
No, I spoke to a couple clinics who said they would not hire me on probation, and it was so embarrassing I just stopped asking.
Did they give you any indication that if you weren't on probation that they would hire you based on your?
Yeah.
If you're working at your clinic and a patient asks you about medications and dosages, how would you respond?
Ask your doctor.
What if they ask you for your opinion?
Just will say ask your doctor.
I don't have anything else at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board members, and if you would just state your name before asking the question, so we have it for the court reporter.
Dr. Sergio Azzolino. Good morning, Dr. McMillan. You stated Dr. Tong, your friend, is that correct?
No, he was a former instructor of mine at Cleveland Chiropractic College in LA, and I was a TA for his X-ray course.
So besides Dr. Tong's courses, have you taken any other courses?
I have not.
Okay, and it looks like you've taken just one online and one in-person course per year?
Yes.
Okay. And do you feel that that is enough to keep you contemporary?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Given your previous situation that got you here to begin with, have you received any formal training in medication management?
No, it was, I was working for an MD and I was conveying his instructions. You know, when you convey the same instructions over and over and over, then you understand the dosing. But no, I did not study it.
And was the MD in the office full time?
No, he was available to me full time. So I could text or call him.
And so how often was he actually in the office at that time?
I mean, he was in the office pretty much every day. But if I was Skyping, I always had access to him. So.
Okay. And were there any other physicians in the office or any other practitioners besides yourself and medical
No,
physician?
I mean, for a time there was a nurse practitioner and there were medical assistants.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Dr. Heather Dane. Hello, Dr.
Hi.
You said you've taken corrective actions since your discipline. So besides not working for Dr. Smith anymore, what other corrective actions have you taken?
Well, I have had extensive conversations with family and with colleagues about how did I get to this place. I've gone to therapy. I read a book on business ethics. You know, it was more a situation of, you know, how did I personally get to a position where I allowed what somebody was telling me was acceptable to override what my own ethics. And so I'm a rule follower by nature, and so to find myself in this position was horrifying to me. And to be honest, I just sort of I just froze for a couple of years. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know if I was going to practice chiropractic anymore. I got a real estate license. I was doing some work with my husband. It's just it's just, I don't know, I feel like I'm just coming out of that now, which is why I'm here and I want to go back to work.
So what conclusions did you come to about how you got to that place?
Right. So, because I am a rule follower and I was working for a doctor, I was following his rules. And so even though I had gone to him a couple times and said, you know, I'm not comfortable with this, I feel that I'm beyond my scope of practice, he always said, no, it's fine, you're fine, because I sign all the reports. So I was following the wrong set of rules, basically. So, you know, you don't value something until you potentially could lose it. And so I placed so much more value on my chiropractic license than at that time. It's not that I didn't value it before. I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but I deferred to him at that time, and I would never do that again.
And when's your probation?
Next May,
May of 2019.
yes,
No more questions.
thank you.
Good morning, Dr.
Good morning.
I have a few questions here. One, the first one being regarding the paperwork for that's presented to us today for on BCE 02. Do you feel that you filled that paperwork out adequately or correctly?
I'm not sure what that is.
This is the questions asking you, have you ever been convicted of forfeit, contest, etc.?
Oh,
It's actually the application for or petition for early termination, second page on that.
thank you.
Specifically 1, 2, 3, the third question down.
Oh. I understand. I thought it meant besides this. I apologize.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Also, you stated that you had called a couple of offices. I just want to clarify, a couple to me means two. Was it 1, 2, or more?
It was 2, and then also I researched getting malpractice insurance, which is also difficult. I found one, but it was sort of a limited coverage.
You said that you also have friends and colleagues who are chiropractors. Are any of those, do any of those practice in your area where you live?
Well, one of my, yes, the practice in the area, and then also one of my very close friends from Chiropractic College is also an attorney now, and so he's the one I've discussed it with most at length.
Did you, I may have not heard this correctly, I heard that you are currently working at a healthcare clinic, or are you potentially working there?
No, I'm currently working there on a very limited basis. There's not
How many hours a week are you working there?
like 3 or 4.
Okay. And are you paid for that time?
Yes, I am.
You said you also have a real estate license.
Yes.
Have you been practicing real estate since receiving that?
Yes,
In addition, you, so you do have other resources financially.
yes.
Additionally, the cost of recovery, there's a remaining balance of $1,100 and $1,166. Are you aware of that?
Yes,
And how do you plan on taking care of that?
I was gonna just keep making payments
Did
through
you know
December.
that has to be paid before reinstatement?
Oh, it does? Well, I could write a check today.
I have nothing further, thank you.
Morning, I'm Dr. Corey Lickman.
Good morning.
The clinic that you're at right now, why only 3 to 4 hours a week?
Because they haven't had a chiropractor there for a long time, so they don't have many patients for me. So,
You're working as an employee.
no, I'm an independent contractor.
Okay, so what else can you be doing to grow that practice if you wanted to get into back in the chiropractic more?
I could be doing some marketing. There is some marketing going on for the clinic. I've only been there a couple weeks. I had this coming up. There's a lot going on.
Okay, so you've been there for a couple weeks. Do you see this as a place where you're going to continue practicing?
Possibly.
Do you plan on opening up your own though in the future?
No.
Do you plan on being an independent contractor then, or do you eventually want to be an employee?
I would like to have the option in that the positions where I would be an employee, I would go into a full practice and be able to make money more consistently.
Anything else? Any final thoughts? Dr.
I don't think so. I think I've covered it.
All right, that will conclude the hearing in the matter. The record is closed and the matter has been submitted to the board for its decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Painter.
Thank you.
Got one missing.
Oops. All right, we're on the record. This is the petition for reinstatement made by Michael Painter. It's case 2018-061126, today's date August 9th, 2018, here in Health of San Diego, before the Board of Chiropractic Examiners, Adam Alberg, Administrative Law Judge for the State's Office of Administrative Hearings, presiding over the hearing. Will the Deputy Attorney General make do your appearance, please?
Kara Ramey, Deputy Attorney General, on behalf of the people of the state of California.
Thank you, and good morning, Dr. Painter. How are you?
Good.
Okay, you're representing yourself today,
Yes, I am.
and you just observed the previous hearing, so you know the procedure for what's going to happen.
Yes.
All right, if you have questions that come up during the hearing, let me know. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Ms. Rainey.
Thank you. We're here today for Dr. Painter's petition for reinstatement of his chiropractic license. His license was revoked in 2013. To go through Dr. Painter's history of discipline, in 1995, pursuant to a stipulation, his license was suspended for 30 days, and he was placed on 5 years probation for violations which included false and misleading advertisements, where advertising as a certified evaluator when he wasn't, and not putting DC after his name, and advertising another doctor without disclosing that the other doctor was not a licensed chiropractor. And also unprofessional conduct in allowing preceptors under his supervision to treat patients without direct supervision. Twice, in 1998 and 1999, he unsuccessfully petitioned for early termination of his probation. In October 2009, pursuant to a stipulation, he was granted another 5-year probation because of a DUI conviction that he got in Alaska. In April of 2011, again pursuant to a stipulation, his probation was extended for 2 years because of another DUI conviction that occurred in February of 2010. A petition to revoke the probation and an accusation were filed in 2013 based upon his third DUI conviction in November 2012. In September of 2013, after hearing, his license was revoked. The petition package, I would say, should be Exhibit 1, which you all have, I believe. And also, I would like to add an Exhibit 2, if I may, which is a more recent discipline, which is a citation of September 11th, 2007, a citation that was issued for violations of Code of Regulations 310.2 for advertising his name with DC and owning a chiropractic facility without a valid chiropractic license. That citation has been closed as the fine was paid and the appropriate corrections have reportedly been made. So if I may approach is
I can just pass it.
Can you thank me?
All right, that will be Exhibit 2. All right, and Dr. Painter, you submitted, handed up another packet of exhibits, looks like letters and CE attendance.
Yes.
All right, I'll mark that as Exhibit 3. All right, if you raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. If you swear or affirm the testimony you'll be giving, will be the truth, the truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
This is your opportunity to tell the board why you believe your license should be reinstated.
Okay, I stopped practice in 2009. My wife came down with the Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's, and I left the practice to take care of her until 2016 when she died. The DUIs I got, I did it. I admitted that in my paper to you. I just, it was harder on me than I thought it would be. Anyway, I went through a dark time in my life from probably 2009 till 2016. I did hire a good doctor in my practice. She ran the practice. The citation here that says that I was advertising was the old advertisement that was on the building. And that's why I received that. When I was notified by the board that the old advertisement was up there and I was in violation, I immediately went over and taped everything off. Last week, we took down all the signs and I repainted the office. So there's no signage at all anymore. I thought, and I believed that I would never go back to chiropractic. I would never do anything. And in 2016, 3 days after we buried my wife, my kids came to me and they had an intervention and they said, "Dad, we don't want to bury you too." At that point, I cut off the alcohol. I haven't drank since. I met somebody else. We just got married. She is a drug and alcohol counselor. But as far as the alcohol abuse goes, that's done. If I get caught again, I go to prison. So I think I put that behind me. I was excited to come here today because this process is probably 2 or 3 times longer than I ever thought it would be. And really up till 2016, I never thought I'd work again. But I've turned my life around. You got these letters in front of you. I've worked in the community extensively. I do a lot for my community. Last week when I went down and I painted the office, it's the first time I'd been there in 6 years. And the patients saw me and they wanted to see me, and it was a very uplifting thing. What else? I completed everything that the state asked. I went to all the classes. I've done all this stuff. I am a veteran. I went to the VA. I know you guys want documentation of treatment, so I went to the VA. I've seen the psychologist or psychiatrist every other month now for a couple of years. And I'm kind of excited today because you know what? Whether you give me my license back or not, I got my life back, and that was the big deal. I got letters here from chiropractors, got letters here from city councilmen, I got letters from the community. I have an office to go back to. Dr. Kristen Mattingly runs that office. Yeah, I've been away from the office since 2012. I really haven't worked. I've been doing the continuing education as far as doing the chiropractic stuff, besides getting all my cheat sheets together for AIDS, HP, and all that stuff, and getting back on those. Going back to work's no problem for me. I like it. It's funny. Everybody that's my age are burned out and want to quit, and they want to get out of it. And because I've been away from it, I missed it. I didn't think I would. I worked hard for 30 years, and I didn't think I'd miss it at all. And since I've been away from it, I do.
Ms. Rainey, question?
Thank you. Dr. Painter, how have you been making your livelihood for the last 8 years?
Properties I own, I collect rent.
Is that the only?
I do odd jobs. My new wife is a real estate broker, and I've learned how to paint, plaster, tape, texture, all those kind of things.
Anything else?
Uh,
Did you own, or do you currently own an interest in the chiropractic business that you
I
opened?
have. I am waiting for this board. We have a contract already drawn up to sell her the complete practice.
So prior to today, at this time, you still own part of the practice.
Well, it's on paper, yes.
Were you making money off that practice after your license was revoked?
I collected rent, $3,000 a month. I do own the building.
We'll talk about the issue of the citation a little bit. Now, you never took your name off the door of the office. Is that what happened?
No, there's actually big signs on the office. Those were put up in 2009, I believe.
And you left them up after your license was revoked?
Yes.
Didn't you also have a website that advertised you as a chiropractor?
I did, yes.
Do you remember talking to the investigator in this case when they were investigating your citation?
No, because I wasn't there.
You never spoke to anybody?
I think I did call. I called after I got the citation in the mail.
And you spoke to someone on the telephone from the Chiropractic Association?
Yes, and she told me what the citations were, and I corrected them that day.
Okay. And one of the citation, part of the issue was the fact that you still had your website showed you as a treating chiropractor, didn't it?
A treating chiropractor? I'm not sure.
It still showed you as a chiropractor, didn't it?
Okay, yes.
And didn't you tell the person that you spoke to on the phone that the website hadn't been, in a way, updated since 2010, and you were aware of what was on the website?
Yes.
So you were aware that the website at that time denoted you as a chiropractor?
Yes, but I wasn't in the office.
Did you make any efforts to take down any advertisements after your license was revoked?
No. I left the practice and never went back.
But yet you still had an interest in the practice?
On paper, I have interest in the practice. Did I share in the profits? No.
Do you think that your website was misleading to the public?
Evidently it was, yes.
Do you remember telling the person that you spoke to that you were hoping your license would be reinstated and that's why you were leaving your name up?
Yes.
Do you work on animals?
I used to.
When was the last time that you did any chiropractic work on animals?
I would say 4 years ago, except I did a free thing for my daughter's barrel racing club last year, where I did their horses and donated their money back to the barrel racing association.
So you did chiropractic work on horses when you did not have a valid chiropractic license?
I don't think you need a chiropractic license to work on horses.
Have you taken classes regarding animal chiropractic work?
Yes, I have.
Did they tell you that you need a license?
Actually, that's kind of a gray area.
What do you mean it's kind of a gray area?
Well, the veterinarians don't think that the chiropractors have a license, and I've never seen anything from this chiropractic board that said that I had to fill out anything to be I'm certified by the ABCA. I did that in 1993, and I practiced animals up to 2009. had a booming business.
You said the last time you practiced was other than adjusting your daughter's horses was 4 years ago? That would be 2014.
No, 2009.
So it was 2009 was the last time
When I quit my practice, I quit the animals.
Do you remember receiving a letter from the veterinary board stating that they believed that you were practicing in violation?
Yes, do you have a copy of what I sent back to them?
I do not.
Oh, well, I sent them back a letter saying that exactly what I told this board, that it was a one-time deal I did for my daughter in the barrel racing, and I told them I was ABC certified and I've been an animal chiropractor, and they sent me back a letter saying that's fine.
Do you have a letter with you that says that's fine?
No, but I can produce one.
Didn't they provide you information that you need to have a valid chiropractic license in order to?
No, they did not.
I'm going to offer, if I can, as Exhibit 4 it would be. Exhibit 4. If I may approach. Exhibit 4, what I'm offering is a letter dated April 9th, 2018 for the Veterinary Medical Board to Dr. Painter. Dr. Painter, do you recognize this letter?
I did not get this letter, I don't think. I got one like it, but I'm not sure that it's this letter.
Okay. It states in the letter on the third paragraph is intended to provide you with the relevant laws so you can institute the necessary changes in your practice and advertisements. By reading this letter and read it through, do you recall getting any of that information?
I'm not advertising, I'm not doing it, so whatever point you're trying to make, yes, I understand.
Did you receive any of the information regarding the necessary laws on chiropractic and veterinarians?
Actually, no, I got a call from the office that they sent it to 3478 Main Street, which is the chiropractic office. And the secretary said, hey, you got this letter, I got it, and I read it, and I wrote a response back. And then she called me 2 months later and said, the complaint's been closed.
And I'm sorry, who called you and said the complaint's been closed?
My secretary.
Your secretary.
My daughter, actually.
So when you were talking about your secretary at the office, was she still working for you in some kind of capacity as an employee?
It's my daughter.
Did I answer the question? Just listen to what the question is.
What's the question?
Was she working as your secretary? Was she an employee?
She's an employee at the office, yes.
Was she your employee?
I don't know, what are you asking?
Were you doing anything towards paying her wages?
No. She was acting in the capacity as my daughter opening my mail that came in.
How do you keep current on chiropractic industry standards?
Actually, my daughter brings me home the chiropractic economics. I went to a CCA program last year down here in San Diego, and I get stuff on the email all the time.
Are you reading any literature? Is that what your daughter brings you home?
Chiropractic economics, the magazines.
Any other courses? I think it looks like you actually might have shown some courses you've attended. Is that correct in your Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Let's talk about a little bit about the alcohol issue.
Okay.
When is the last time you had a drink?
February the 3rd, 2016.
And why do you particularly remember that date?
Because that was the day I had an intervention with my 4 children.
Did you get drunk that day?
No. caught me before I got there.
And prior to that particular date of your, we'll call that the date of your sobriety, is that
Yes,
appropriate?
Yeah.
Prior to that, how often did you drink?
every day.
And how is it you're maintaining your sobriety now?
Was a promise to them, a lot of prayer, and I have a good woman right now that I gave up all that stuff for.
Have you done any programs like an AA?
I went to AA for a while. I tried all those things. They didn't work for me.
And when you say you tried all those things, you talk about AA, what other programs did you try?
Well, I actually went to AA. Then I went to my church, and once a week thing we get together and go to. But what worked for me was the intervention.
And why do you say, what about the intervention made you completely stop drinking?
Because it ripped my heart out to see all my kids crying and telling me that they don't want to bury me like they did their mom.
How can you assure the public that you're not going to drink again?
Well, you know what? When I practiced, I never drank. I never drank once going to the practice or coming from the practice. I drank when I fell into watching my wife die every day. And 3 months later, I buried my mom. And I was their caregivers for 6 years.
So what kind of triggers would you say caused your drinking?
It was just my drug of choice to get through what I was going through.
What are you going to do if you have another major stress in your life?
I don't think I'm going to. And if I do, I've been through this. I mean, you either fall down and quit, or you get up and you're tougher. You know what? I lost my faith, and that was a big thing. You know, I questioned my faith, and now I've got it back. And I think what God gave me after that was, gave me a gift.
What do you mean by a gift?
My new wife. I know my soulmate. I lost my soulmate. I watched her die every day.
So you really can't really assure that you won't go back to drinking.
I can't assure you won't get hit by a car when you walk out here either.
Other than your wife, is there anybody that helps you maintain your sobriety?
No. My wife, my kids, my life. I don't buy alcohol anymore. I don't go to bars. I've developed a life away from it. I don't need it anymore.
Do you go to counseling?
I do.
And how often do you go to counseling?
Every other month. I went once a month for a year, and I go every other month.
And in that counseling, do you work on issues regarding sobriety?
We talk about sobriety, but sobriety is probably not the biggest issue anymore.
What's the biggest issue?
Trying to get this done. Moving forward in my life. Being positive, having a positive attitude. Waking up every morning and thanking the Lord for the day.
Other than every other month counseling, is there any other counseling that you're getting currently?
If you call going to church counseling, I do that once a week.
I don't know. How does it help you go to church once a week?
Yeah, it does. Yes, it does.
What happens if your license is not reinstated?
I'm going on. I'm going in the other direction. I'd love to go back to my practice. I painted it. It looks beautiful. Patients want me back. It's a busy practice. I got a young doctor in there. Well, she's been there for 10 years, so I guess she's not young. But she's a dynamic person. As far as helping me get back in the groove, she'll do that. I don't want to go back to work every day.
And how do you know the patients want you back?
Because I see them in the grocery store, I see them around town, when are you coming back, when are you coming back?
And what are you telling them?
I'm telling them, you know, I've been on a sabbatical, I don't know.
So other than drinking, at this time, if there's any stressors in your life, what do you do?
What I do, go fishing, go ride my jet ski, go work in my garden, pray about it.
Anything else? I have nothing further, thank you.
Okay, questions from the board? You again, state your name.
Dr. Sergio Azzolino. Good morning. It seems like you have been before the board on numerous occasions for misrepresenting yourself as a chiropractor and advertising yourself as a chiropractor when you're in fact no longer a chiropractor. There's also an issue of representing yourself as a certified disability evaluator when you had no such certification. Do you
I did
recall
do
that?
the IDE course, and I put that down, that was back before there was I took the course and passed it for an IDE, independent disability evaluator.
Are you stating that you were a disability evaluator, or certified disability
Well, I
evaluator?
took the test and passed it, so. But I think after that, there was another disability evaluator that came out, you had to take the class.
So you previously pleaded that you did misrepresent yourself. Is your statement today that you were truly a certified disability evaluator?
Whatever I commended, whatever you're saying.
Okay, so my concern is that even as recent as 2016, you are still signing a letter from your own quote-unquote clinic where your name is listed up top, Michael Painter, DC, and you did not have a license at that time. And you're signing your name as a DC with your license number.
What was that?
Excuse me?
What paper is that?
That's Bates Stamp 3, September 1st, 2016.
No, that's wrong. One moment, I know I have a copy of this petition packet.
If I signed it, I did it.
Excuse me?
Yes,
So why is it that you continue to represent yourself as a chiropractor given the entire history of being admonished for doing so?
I have not pretended or tried to act in any way to be a DC since the board took my license. You've got a paper that I signed, and that's some old stationery that somebody printed up, and it's a mistake on my part.
The stationery is from 2016, which is fairly recent, and it does have your license number on there. And you also state that your license was suspended rather than revoked. So may there be anything else out there besides this and the letters you provided that continually list yourself as a chiropractor?
I think that if there was anything else out there, it'd be on your desk.
Well, there seems to be some confusion because your continuing ed documents show your license number and still represent
It was
you.
my mistake because I thought I had to put that down so when they send it into the board, if I ever get my license back, they'd be know where to find me.
So are you doing anything on an ongoing basis to become a little more familiar with the rules and regulations that govern your license if it were to be reinstated?
I think I've gotten a lot of literature in the last year, since 2016, from the board on my violations, but for my studying what's going on, I did pull it up on the internet, and it was like 1,000 pages, so.
So you also submitted a letter as recent as July 31st, 2018 from Dr. Lance Miller. that references you as a DC also.
You know, I've been a DC to him all his life. I didn't tell him to write that.
Did you not catch that that was written in error and
No,
classified
I
you?
did not.
And there was another letter written August 3rd, 2018, referencing you as Dr. Mike from Thomas Williams.
Yes,
Are you aware, given your previous history with the board, that in California, we're unfortunately not able to reference ourselves as doctor if our license is not current?
all I can say about that is they've been calling me Dr. Mike for the last 30 years, so I'm not telling them to call me Dr. Mike. That's just something that's coming out of their mouth.
Okay, my greatest concern is not what they're calling you, is that you may or may not be aware of misrepresenting yourself once again as a licensed chiropractor to the public. No further questions, thank you.
Dr. Heather Dane. I have a couple of questions too. When did Kristen Mattingly, did she work for you before your revocation, or did she start working there after your revocation?
No, she started working in 2009.
Okay, and
Actually, I went out on, I had a carpal tunnel surgery in 2009, and I caught a virus in my thumb, and so I was off work for 18 months, and that's when I hired her, and she's been there ever since.
okay, so she started in 2009 when you were on probation.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a couple of letters in here. One is from 2016 and one doesn't have a date on it at all, but both letters that you've written to the board. And there's some differing dates on both of them. So was your wife's diagnosis in 2007 or 2009?
I believe it was 2007, actually,
Okay,
because she lived 9 years.
okay. And then there's also a letter in here of June 14, 2018 from the VA that said you had substance abuse treatment program there, yet when the district attorney has asked you about it, you didn't mention that as one of the programs. Is that something you attended?
And no, I did not attend a program. I just saw him
What's-
individually.
What's the VA's substance abuse treatment at the
Well,
Martinez
when I
outpatient?
went in there, I told them that I was going to try to get my license back. I'd had it suspended for alcohol abuse, and that was the original diagnosis. And then when he started talking to me, he found out I quit. That's what we've been doing ever since.
So the VA didn't have a substance abuse program?
They did. They have, go and sit down like AA and all that stuff.
Did
But
you?
I never participated in that.
Okay, that's fine with that. Thank you very much.
Good morning, I'm Dr. McLean, Dr. Dion McLean. I just have a few questions here. Do you consider yourself an alcoholic?
Yes.
In the petition for reinstatement of revoked license, it asks on page BCE 02 on the fifth question down, are you or have you ever been habitually intemperate in use of alcohol or other drugs? And you check no.
Right.
Are you aware of that?
I wasn't,
Sorry.
no, I wasn't aware that I checked the wrong box.
Okay. But you are stating that you do
Yes,
consider yourself.
yes.
Additionally, in the packet here, let's see, BCE 11, there's a letter from the Department of Veterans Affairs from Dr. Dylan Athenor. And it's basically stating that you did receive some type of treatment there.
It's ongoing.
It's ongoing. It states that your last appointment, was June of 2018, so you're continuing past that? Is that what you're?
Yeah,
Yesterday.
no, I think it was after June
This letter states that
when he wrote the
you have
letter.
psychotherapy appointments since May of 2017. Veteran's last appointment was on June 14, 2018. Is that incorrect?
That's incorrect,
Okay.
because I went in after that another time, I think in August, right before I came, no, not August, but, I picked it up 2 weeks ago. I picked up the letter and saw him that day, and that's the letter that you have.
Okay. So this letter basically just states that you were receiving treatment. It does not state any facts regarding whether or not the therapist recommends that you can practice again. You're aware of that, right?
Well, yes, because I asked him about that, and he said there's a Privacy Act and all this kind of stuff, so.
On BCE 35, in the first paragraph here, it states that if recommended by a psychiatrist or psychotherapy and approved by the board, respondent shall be barred from participating in chiropractic until the treating psychotherapist recommends in writing and stating the basis thereof that respondent can safely practice chiropractic. Do you have any such letter?
No.
Okay.
I was not aware that I had to have that specific letter.
Do you have a copy of this document? This is proposed decision and factual findings in this matter. It's on page 35. If you do have that. One other thing here. There's the matter of cost recovery that's still remaining. Are you aware, or is that accurate, that you have $2,172.50 remaining?
I believe I paid everything.
Okay.
Mr. Wood?
As of July 10th, we show that you have an unpaid amount of $2,687. And that was for a prior accusation in 2011. You never paid the cost recovery for that.
Oh, so I paid the $1,500 or whatever, but I still owe you $2,000.
Yes.
I was not aware of that.
Are you prepared to pay that amount?
Yes.
And again, can you just reiterate to me, one, how do you feel that you are prepared to practice, given that it's been such a long time since you stated that you practice, and I understand that you're reading some of the newsletters, but what else are you doing to stay current with current trends in treating?
Like I said, I have done all my continuing education requirements for this year. I did them for 2016. I have a doctor in the office that's gonna, walk me through whatever I need to do, and I've got 30 years experience of doing it. And treating the patients is not the problem, it's the paperwork.
So the doctor in the office, what in these courses has prepared you for that paperwork?
Oh, gosh, I was on the ASHP and doing all that stuff before.
That
Before I
was,
stopped
you said since
practicing.
2009, so that was over 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago.
Does the diagnosis has changed that much?
So, I have nothing further.
I have no questions. All right, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I came in here with a positive attitude, you know, and I would love to go back to work. If you need a letter from a psychiatrist saying I can go back to work, I wouldn't have any problem getting that. But the truth of the matter is, I miss it. You know, and if I don't go back, gosh, my life is so much better than it has been. So, thank you for your time.
Anything from Deputy Attorney General?
No.
All right. That will conclude the hearing in the matter. The records closed in the matters.
A short
Need
break.
it back.
Take a few minutes rest.
No, you can read that, just copy the petition.
I want to make an announcement for anybody who has parking here. Valerie just let me know that if you tell the front desk that you're with the board meeting here, they'll give you a reduced rate for parking. So if you have a car, you might want to let them know before you leave. Okay.
Right. Dr. Nugent. You can come out. All right, we're on the record. This is the matter of the petition for reinstatement of a license for Andy Nguyen. It's case 2018-07-0030. Today's date, August 9, 2018, in San Diego. Before the Board of Chiropractic Examiners, Adam Berg, Administrative Law Division, the State Prosecutor, presiding over the hearing. Before we begin, there we have a disclosure from one of the board members.
Yes, Dr. Azzolino here. I just want to disclose that Andy Nguyen was a former student of mine, possibly 20 years ago in chiropractic college, and I wanted to ask him on the record if he's okay with me sitting in on the proceeding or if he'd prefer that I recuse myself.
I was fine having him here.
And as long as you feel like you can be fair and impartial, then there's no need for a disqualification.
I could be fair and impartial, and I'd like to state that I've had zero contact with him before or after the probably 3-month class that we had.
Very good. Would the Deputy Attorney General enter your appearance, please?
Thank you. Kara Ramey, Deputy Attorney General, on behalf of the people of the state of California.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Nguyen, you've sat through 2 hearings now, so you, I'm sure, familiar with what's going to happen. If you have questions during the hearing, let me know. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. We are here today for a petition for reinstatement. Dr. Nguyen's license was issued originally in 2005, and it was revoked in 2012, October of 2012, after a hearing based upon his conviction in Arizona for the facilitation of transportation of marijuana for sale. The burden again is on the petitioner to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that he is entitled to reinstatement. And the petition packet we could mark as Exhibit 1, but we have an issue. There are photographs that are being objected to. There's photographs attached to the petition packet, and I've discussed this with the petitioner, that at that time we have no releases from the people that have the photographs. Those are individuals, there's also children and so forth in there, so I would object to the photographs being a part of the public record. I noticed that he has brought certain other things here today that are photographs and some releases. So if the releases apply, and I can't tell what, to certain photographs, then that would be a different issue. But otherwise, I object to the photographs that are part of the packet. And other than that, I do not have anything further this time until questions.
All right, why don't I, all right, so one of the photographs, I mean, it might be just easier for me to just do it exactly what photograph.
That's fine.
I don't know, I mean, I don't know the public values, but it's
Very good, Your Honor.
All right, Dr. Nguyen, if you raise your right hand, just so you swear or affirm the testimony you'll be giving will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, this is your opportunity to tell the board why you believe your license should be reinstated.
Good morning, everyone. The stuff I presented today and the stuff that I sent the board are pictures of all the things that I do in the community. All the things that I have been doing and will always continue to do. What I gave you today were some awards that were given to me by Congress, the President, congressional recognition for my community service to the community with Catholic Charities. I volunteer with Catholic Charities. I do a seniors fall prevention class. It's my way of giving back to the community. I've been doing that for about 10 years. Help seniors from falling. I run a Little Ninjas program to help kids stay off the street. I'm a martial artist, and so everything I do, I try to incorporate martial arts. And so I run a Little Ninjas program, and all the pictures you have are approved from parents, hospitals. I work with a lot of hospitals. The pictures I brought today were just taken like 2 weeks ago. That's why I made sure I brought the consent forms and stuff, because I know that was a problem. So I had the hospital send me the consent forms. I work with professional athletes. This is TJ Dillashaw. He fought in LA at the Staples Center for his belt. He went and visited the kids at the hospital with me to inspire kids, people that are sick, to never quit, to never give up. I run a nonprofit called Shake Out Cancer. I lost family to cancer, and lemonade out of lemons. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So I also run a nonprofit called Choke Out Cancer. I work with professional athletes, UFC professional athletes, and we visit kids and adults at the hospital. And, that's why I brought the pictures, because they say 1,000 words without having to say anything, right? What we can do. I also wanted to bring up, obviously I don't want to make any excuses of why my license was revoked, but I also heard cases today where people were doing things in the office, things that were ethically wrong. Yes, I did wrong, but the facts of the matter was it was a misdemeanor. The case was dropped to a misdemeanor because I was not in the same car. I was not even in the same, around the same area. I was miles and miles away from the car that had the cannabis or the marijuana. And so I was not even around the car. But yes, I rented the car. My name was, I helped my friend and I rented the car. And so that's the facts of the matter. And I've learned from my mistakes. But yeah, getting my license revoked was hard, obviously. But I'm not going to sit around and mope about it. That's why I'm out in the community doing things. The award that I got was in 2010 from Congress, and the last time they gave me an award was 2014. And so shows you for the last 10 years I've been serving the community for sure. I'm not going to sit back and chiropractor in my DNA is serve and do no harm. But I definitely, made a mistake with getting in trouble with the law for sure. And I would definitely let you guys know that I would not be doing that again. I did get married. My wife is pregnant, my first child. Super excited to beg. I'm really here to beg to get my career back, my license back, and get back into doing more for my community, be of service. These are things that, you know, are part of my DNA and who I am. So I definitely want to get back to being of service, being what I was here meant to be. So, quick story, right? Quick story. We came to the United States in 1975 as refugees. My stepfather worked for the State Department, brought our family over, met my mom in Vietnam, brought our family over, we lived in Virginia. My dad worked in Washington, D.C. as State Department. And we took a family road trip to Texas. And my dad drove, and when we got there, his back was hurting. He couldn't walk. And he went and saw a chiropractor. The chiropractor was able to get him well, got him better. And I remember him dancing at the wedding, and I said to myself, man, what is this chiropractic thing? Who are these chiropractors? And ever since then, I wanted to be a chiropractor. And I want to be a chiropractor. And my father passed away of cancer. And so, in his honor, I'd like to be a chiropractor again, please. And serve my community. Please. That's it.
Ms. Wright.
Thank you. Dr. Nguyen, why don't you tell us what you've been doing to keep current in the field of chiropractic?
It's in my DNA. I pretty much every day help people, seniors, you know, with my fall prevention classes, and I definitely, you know, stretch them and advise them on, you know, a lot of seniors, you know, they walk like this, so, you know, I work with their posture. I help them to sit up straight. I help them to do a lot of extension exercises, just laying on their stomach and just lifting their heads, or, you know, extension and flexion, and balance, a lot of balance work. So I help seniors with their balance, you know, lifting their head. As soon as they lift their head, they lose their balance. So I do a lot of balance work with seniors to help them from falling, and I educate them on neurology and balance and motor and sensory, and I'm doing that with all the athletes. I'm doing that with all my students. I teach them anatomy. A lot of my students know the anatomy because I want them to know the muscles, the nerves. I'm in it to win it all the time, 24/7.
What type of, have you taken courses?
Yes, I've gone to seminars. I've done, you know, there's a few doctors that do seminars that provide pizzas, so you kind of go back to those doctors because you get free pizza for lunch. But yes, I've stayed current. I read a lot. I'm always reading. Sure.
When you say you're always reading, what type of things are you reading?
Medicine, medical. I research a lot of stuff on cancer, obviously, but anything that's medical, health, fitness. I'm a big health and fitness person, so anything that has to do with the human body and what can make us heal.
And you stated, I think, in your petition that in 2015 you attended the Sacro-Occipital Technique seminar with Dr. Charles Blum. Have you attended any seminars or courses since 2015?
I have. Yes.
And what do you call attending?
The 12 hours, the credits that we have to get per year that we do. And I get all kinds of emails from the doctors every time the seminars come up, for sure. So, yes, I stay current.
And anything else that you've done to prepare yourself to go back to practice?
Every day, you know, chiropractic is a lot of philosophy, and I preach the philosophy to everybody I meet as well. posture, balance, neurology, and the human body being amazing and that it can heal itself. So yes, being a martial artist, I kind of, in a way, I do a lot of grappling and jiu-jitsu and stuff. I pretty much manipulate a lot of joints and stuff. It's the sport of manipulating the shoulder, elbow, and stuff when you're grappling and stuff. So I pretty much teach a lot of my students, and I teach a lot of people that I train with ligaments, tendons, and stuff like that would get damaged if you did the technique wrong and stuff like that. So there's a lot of educating my students on right and wrong ways to attack the shoulder or the elbow and stuff like that. Because you do martial arts at a high level where you're a UFC professional athlete, and some of these athletes, they really want to have a longevity with their career. And I definitely advise them a lot on ways to prevent injuries, breaking up scar tissues that they had surgery with in the past. Help them, tell them what to do to maintain a better health, and so that they don't have these injuries and stuff.
And if you go back to work, where do you intend to go back to work?
Hollywood. I would love to get back to, I'm really proud of my work in the past. I wrote it all down. So I worked on a movie called Powder Blue. The student that grew up, his mother was a student, and his brother became a director in Hollywood. And on one movie, I got to work with 2 Oscar winners, Forrest Whitaker, Eddie Redmayne. I worked with Jessica Biel, Ray Liotta, Lisa Kudrow, Patrick Swayze before he passed away, Chris Christopherson. Got to work with a lot of professional athletes and people as the chiropractor on set. And then I lost my license and didn't get a chance to go back and do that. But I definitely can reach a lot of people, help a lot of people, and make a difference. And I'm ready to get back in here and do it.
So the job you're looking at is going back to like a chiropractor on set? Is that the idea?
Yeah, it was my first time ever doing it, and the producer and script supervisor and everybody was like, wow, we've never had this before. It's amazing because the script supervisor has this huge book, and she sits right next to the director, and her posture is like this the whole day. And I asked her, I said, what's your job? And she said, continuity. Every time the director says action to cut, it has to be the exact same every time they shoot and stuff like that. But her posture was like this the whole time. And so I helped her and I worked with her. And then one day she came in while we were having lunch on set, and she said, my husband told me there's something about you different. Did you get a different haircut? Did you get a different, something? And she said, no, I'm sitting straight up. Andy told me to sit straight up and better my posture, and she did. So, yeah, I love what I do.
And are you, in the practice that you're going to have, are you going to be working with any other chiropractors, or is it just your own work?
Yeah, I love working with other people and a team, for sure.
Are you planning a team at all, or?
I would love to, yeah, work with other people in the future. I've worked with people in the past. I've worked with orthopedic surgeons, pre-op, post as well, preventing people from having surgery. Doctors don't like it when you take money out of their pocket when you prevent people from having surgery, but they knew that sometimes people don't need surgery. So I worked with a lot of orthopedic surgeons in the past, and I kept patients from having surgery, and then after they did have surgery with the orthopedic surgeon, I helped them get back to 100%.
Let me talk a little bit about the conviction that led to your revocation. You were saying that you weren't in the car at the time, but you did plead to the fact that to the crime of felicitation of marijuana transportation, right?
Yeah, the attorney, because it was out of state, the attorney told me, why go through trial and all this stuff, and I would have to travel back and forth and stuff like that. And I told him, I said, the most important thing was that I didn't want to lose my chiropractic license. I didn't want to jeopardize my career. And he said, well, we'll simply plead and get a misdemeanor. And he said, I can get you a misdemeanor if we just plead. And I said, if I just get a misdemeanor and I have to go through this whole trial, please, I can handle a misdemeanor. I didn't know a misdemeanor was going to be detrimental to my career and license and stuff. But I'm not going to probably spill milk. It was a decision I made to plead to a misdemeanor. And maybe I should have went through the trial and applied, but yes, I pleaded to a misdemeanor.
At the time you pled to it, it was actually a felony, wasn't it?
Yeah, they said if I did my probation and all that stuff, it would be a misdemeanor.
But you actually pled to the felony, am I correct?
I did, yes.
And then later on it was reduced to a misdemeanor.
Yeah, that was the plea though, that it would be a misdemeanor.
You remember the hearing that you had regarding your license?
I do.
And there you essentially denied knowing anything about the marijuana.
Yeah, no, I rented the car. That's all I did. And so I didn't know about the marijuana. I had nothing to do with the car, the person, or anything like that. That was, a friend asking me to rent the car for them. And I did, and I made the mistake, and I won't do that again. But once again, what they did and stuff like that was on them, and I had no idea and stuff like that.
Well, if you had no idea and you just rented the car, why didn't you go to trial?
That was probably one of those that, what shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I didn't. Because like I said, losing my license was huge. And I was like, no. And so I just pled. So that, because the attorney said, you get a misdemeanor. And I was like, okay. I didn't want to go through all that trial. And it was in Arizona, and I would have to travel back and forth and travel and stuff. And I was like,
Do you feel that you did anything criminally wrong in that case?
yes, ma'am. I sure do. I am guilty and paid my fines, did my, whatever I did to satisfy the court. I sit here before you and the board. I lost my license. I lost my career. I definitely got punished for what I did. It's not easy telling people you lost your license or but it is what it is. I'm ready to move forward. It was a mistake and move forward.
So as you sit here today, do you still deny that you did anything criminal in Arizona?
No, ma'am.
But you still deny that you had any knowledge that the vehicle you rented had anything to do with transporting marijuana?
No, yes, ma'am.
Now, you said you've been doing a great deal of volunteer work, which we have evidence of. And you did that volunteer work even before your license was revoked, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, one of the certificates you have here today was from 2010. That was prior to your license being revoked, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What have you done differently in your volunteer work since your license has been revoked?
So, even though that says 2010, that was when they gave me the award. And every time they give me the award, I feel like I got to do more. So, if I see a car that's broken down on the side of the road, I'm going to pull over. That's the kind of guy I am. If someone needs help, the other day I was at the grocery store and the lady looked like she was kind of lost, and so I asked her. I actually drove a senior citizen home in my car, loaded all her grocery into my car, and stuff like that. And I asked a friend to come along and stuff like that just to make sure this lady got home. But I'm a community service kind of guy. I will serve. I'm going to help, and I'm here to help.
I was reading in your petition package on page 3, you said that you've made some poor decisions in the past. What did you mean by that?
That was definitely one of them. For sure.
When you say that was, could you elaborate a little bit? Which of that?
Hanging out with the wrong people maybe sometimes. Being at the wrong place at the right time or wrong time. Sometimes those things happen. Maybe, yeah, for sure.
What do you mean by hanging out with the wrong people sometimes?
Well, in California, there's just a lot of people smoking cannabis and being around cannabis and stuff like that, and I'm sure I shouldn't have been around those people.
And are you no longer around those people?
Oh, yeah.
Are those the people you meant that in Arizona were that rented the car?
Yes, ma'am.
The car too. And you knew that they were into cannabis at the time?
Oh, yeah.
You have also said that you've learned a great deal. What do you mean by that?
I'm about to become a father, and I definitely want to be the best father possible. And I definitely want to teach my son right from wrong. And I definitely will teach him to winners hang out with winners, losers hang out with losers, and I definitely don't want him associating himself with the wrong people. And learn from my mistakes and not be around the wrong people. And maybe not be in the wrong place as well.
From what you've talked about, that you didn't know when you rented the car that they were going to pick marijuana up or something like that. If you didn't know that, how do we know that you won't do something like that again?
Because I am really cautious about my credit card and my credit and all that stuff. That was a mistake a long time ago. And I thought, oh, cool, I could rent cars for people and had, credit and all that good stuff. And someone asked, I just was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll rent you a car. And now it's paying for diapers and take care of my wife.
In 2010, you pled guilty to resisting or obstructing a police officer in the line of their duties in San Jose. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What was that about?
Wrong place, wrong time. So a friend of mine was in an altercation, and I was trying to stop the police officer and stuff. And probably should have been going home.
Well, how is it that you tried to stop the police officer?
Probably just let the police officer do their job.
No, I mean, what did you do to try and stop the police officer?
Probably just getting in the way and not letting them do their job.
What did you do at that? It was at a hotel, is that right?
Yeah.
What actually happened?
Being argumentative, I'm sure, with the police officer, and not, backing up when they tell you to back off or something like that, But once again, just sticking my nose in places I shouldn't have been sticking my nose in.
So you didn't listen to the police officer?
Yes, that's.
What was he telling you to do?
Back off and let them do their job.
And why weren't you letting them do their job?
Probably because we were celebrating and having a good time and wrong decisions.
And when you say you were celebrating, what were you celebrating?
A friend of mine's birthday.
Were you drinking?
I'm sure I was to make those wrong decisions, yeah.
Do you think the alcohol had anything to do with the fact that you were giving a hard time to the cops?
I am 100% sure it was.
Do you drink anymore?
I'm not a very good drinker. Asians are not very good. We turn bright red and we can't handle our alcohol, so no, ma'am.
When's the last time you had anything to drink?
It's been a while. Trying to live a longer life for my son. Longer, healthier life for my son.
And when you said it's been a while, can you give us an estimate about what you mean from a while, or how long it's been since you've had alcohol?
Probably 2 years. I got married 2 years ago, and I definitely had too much to drink on my wedding day. But then after that, all business.
Let's go back to the resisting arrest charge, or that you pled guilty to. You said you argued with the police officers. Did you touch them?
No.
How long were you arguing with police officers?
Too long.
And why did you continue to do that?
Once again, I'm sure it was the alcohol.
Have you had any other arrests since your license has been revoked?
No.
You have any
N-O.
any other interactions with law enforcement?
Big N-O.
What did you learn from the conviction that you had in 2010 for resisting arrest? What did you learn from that?
Stay out of people's business. Obey the law. Respect the police and the authority, for sure.
What was it that you were interfering with? What were they trying to do?
Arrest a friend of mine for the same thing, just being loud, obnoxious. It's a fancy hotel, and imagine being in a fancy hotel and someone being obnoxious and loud, and of course the police officer was, getting involved, and I should have never stuck my nose into the business.
You didn't disclose that conviction to the chiropractic board, did you?
It was a misdemeanor, and so I don't know if I did, but
Well, I was going to say, do you know if you did or not?
I know I marked, yes, I've had convictions.
But did you put any explanation of that? Of the conviction that you had in San Jose in 2010? Have you explained that at all in any of your work, any of your explanations to the chiropractic board?
I don't know if I did, but I do know I marked that I did have a conviction, a misdemeanor, and
I'm going to take you to I'll give you a copy of your packet that I'm looking at, which we marked as Exhibit 1. And if you look at page, it's actually marked, it's the BCE 2. Let's see on that one. Do you see page 2? Let me help you out here. Right here. Okay? That's your application, isn't it?
Yep.
All right, on page 2 at the top, it asks you about have you been convicted or pled no contest to a violation of any foreign law, etc., including misdemeanors and felonies, and you checked yes, correct?
Yes.
And then at the bottom it says if you've answered yes, in the box there, if you've answered yes to any of the above questions, you must attach a statement of explanation giving full details. Would you attach a statement of explanation concerning your misdemeanor conviction for resisting arrest in 2010?
I must have not.
I don't have anything further, thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
No questions.
Dr. Heather Dane, I have one question. When you were providing treatment on set for the movie you described, what was your method for keeping records of the treatments you provided?
We took notes, we had files, but they weren't really treatments or that sort. It was kind of keeping people healthy. It was really just posture because, like I said, the director and producers and script supervisors just sat in a chair for like 12 hours, 13 hours on on set. And so I just got them up moving around all the time. And sometimes the movie shoot would go into like 4 o'clock in the morning. So everybody's energy was really low. And so it was my job to kind of get the energy back up and just motivate people to kind of, get the energy going.
Were you considered the chiropractor on set in that situation? Or were you just hanging out because you knew somebody?
Yeah, I was pretty much just hanging out because I knew somebody.
So if you, like you said, you want to go back and you want to practice in Hollywood and you
Yeah.
want to be the chiropractor on set, what's your plan for record keeping in an out of office situation like that?
Well, what I found out was that I would work with the insurance. I would work with the producer on with the insurance and stuff like that. Because I guess what the movie I worked on really didn't have a lot of action, really didn't have a lot of stuff. But what I was getting advice from the producers that there were so many other movies that had like stunt work and stuff like that, and that she thought that that would be more where I should really get in.
I understand that, but if you're going to be in an environment like that and you're going to be possibly treating injuries that happen,
Yeah.
do you have a plan for how you're going to keep records? And you're aware that if you're having a doctor-patient relationship with anybody, that you have to keep records.
Yeah.
There's minimum standards that you should
Yeah, no, we would
familiarize
definitely-
yourself with. And so what's your plan on?
Yeah, we would definitely have like a office on set type of thing where we would have files and all that. I just never got a chance to get that far. It was just
Okay.
the one opportunity that I got to just be on a set and work with people, but really not work with people.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Deanna McLean. Just a little more detail on your plan. Specifically, if you are reinstated, what is your plan to start a practice or begin practicing or get employment?
In the past, I've worked with a lot of local doctors in the Bay Area. I've worked with orthopedic surgeons. I've worked in pain management offices where all they were doing were just straight injections for low back pain and stuff like that. And so I definitely would reach back out to a lot of the offices that I worked with to get back into helping their offices, because I kind of helped build a lot of their preventative section of their offices in the past. And so I want to get back into like working with some of these offices possibly.
So to date, have you contacted anyone that you have previously worked with regarding future employment?
Yeah, we obviously with Facebook and social media these days, I stay in contact with a lot of doctors I've worked with.
But have you specifically contacted them regarding employment or a plan to work with them?
Not that I was ready to because like I said, it's kind of you're kind of like juggling the fact that one, you're still kind of ashamed that you don't have your license. You're kind of still ashamed that you don't have where you're at. So it's kind of like, do I really want to go talk to these doctors and professionals and still be the guy who doesn't have a license and stuff? And so I kind of hold back a little bit, but I definitely, say hi on Facebook and stuff like that.
How many CEUs are required per year?
For continuing education, it's 12 or 24.
In your packet here, in your petition, I'm sorry, it states on the very first page of memorandum that we received that you have an unpaid balance of $2,687.50. On page 3, BCE, page 3, about the 6th paragraph down, it states that you stated that my chiropractic license has now been revoked 5 years, and I have paid all my offenses. Have you paid that balance?
Yeah, no, I didn't know that I had that balance, but now that I do, I definitely would take care of it as soon as possible. And if it helps to get my license back, if I do that, I would work on that as well.
Just one more thing. You said that you read mainly medical, health, and fitness. What specific chiropractic information, journals, literature have you read to stay abreast?
I get the chiropractic journals, chiropractic dynamic, chiropractic economics, those journals.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
I'm Dr. Corey Lincoln. I have a couple questions. Just, you got your license back in '98, so what did you do for '98 to 2005?
From 98 to 2005.
Where were you practicing in '98 when you got your license? You graduated in '98, right?
Yeah, I was in San Jose.
So what did you do from '98 to 2005 after you graduated in chiropractic?
I did a lot of martial arts. I have a martial arts school.
So you weren't licensed at that time then?
No.
So then you just decided to get your license in 2005?
Yeah.
Have you taken any continuing education classes, seminars since 2016?
I don't have records of it right now. I would, every time so often I'll get emails from doctors that I did seminars with, and then
Have you taken a seminar since 2016?
I don't think so. I don't know if I did.
Do you feel that you're ready to start practice as a chiropractor again?
Yes, sir, I am. But I'm not gonna do it without taking my seminars and going back, and doing stuff that I need to do. I mean, it's not. I definitely would do all that.
When was the last time you adjusted somebody?
Accidentally. Like I said, when you're grappling and stuff like that, you'll move joints and you'll move things when you're trying to lock people's elbows and stuff.
Sorry, 1 second. Thank you, I have no further questions.
Dr. Dion Gordon, I just have one question for you. The current work that you do with energy and stretching and adjusting people, do you need a chiropractic license for?
With stretching, no. I stretch a lot of people. Stretching is youthful, and not stretching is aging. And so I work with a lot of seniors, and of course, a senior would turn their head like this. So I promote stretching every day because life brings you down, and stretching will get you back for sure.
Thank you.
All right, any final thoughts or comments?
So I was just kind of looking through this packet, and man, it doesn't do any justice. I wish you guys could see all these pictures in color because I've worked really hard outside of chiropractic to serve my community. There's a picture right here of a robot. In Silicon Valley, I use robots to help kids that are battling cancer at the Ronald McDonald House. And when they're battling cancer at the Ronald McDonald House, they're there for months, even years. And so I use robots to help them get out and use a laptop to be able to talk to people and interact with people through robots. And run like the turkey trot and the Santa run and stuff like that. Bottom line is, I've learned my lesson. I've lost my career, I've lost my job, I've lost my, my stepfather wanted me to be a chiropractor, and he was helped by a chiropractor. And believe how much pain he was in, how he couldn't move, and that a chiropractor, I mean, he was dancing at the wedding. And so ever since then, I wanted to become a chiropractor, and I want to become a chiropractor again, please. I beg of you to forgive me for my, making mistakes, wrong choices, but I'm a good chiropractor, I'm a good person, and I can help people and serve the community. I won't do anything wrong when it comes to being a chiropractor.
All right, thank you, and just, you had submitted, some certificates and, additional photos, and those will be, exhibit 2. Ms. Ramey, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
That concludes the hearing in the matter, the record is closed, and the matter is submitted to the board for its decision.
Just for informational purposes, we're going into closed session after this, and after closed session, there'll be a lunch break. So we will resume here, there'll be an hour lunch break, and so that will start whenever we get done with closed session.
1 o'clock.
What, we're gonna resume at 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
We'll resume at 1 o'clock. The meeting with agenda item, number 6. So in closed session, we discussed the petitioner hearings and disciplinary cases. Item number 7, the chair's report. We have a lot on our agenda today, so I'm going to keep it very short. I'd like to welcome officially our newest board member, and Dr. Theon, who was at part of our last board meeting, but now at our full board meeting today. Welcome. We're happy to have you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Committees are continuing to work on ongoing projects, and a lot of that is recognized in our full agenda today, so I want to get started with that as soon as possible. So we're just going to move on to item number 8, approval of June 5th, 2018 board meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. McLean?
I am trying to get to the area I'd like to discuss. 1 second. On page 6 of the minutes, about the 4th paragraph, it states that Dr. May shared that Dr. McLean had left further comments and this topic, and that her suggestion is to leave number 6 as physiotherapy. That was misspoken. That actually should read that this was one of the suggestions discussed in committee. Okay.
Anything else?
I just have a question, on page 10, under the update discussion of the discussion. Is this an accurate statement, Dr. Day? I guess I should ask. Members discussed and approved, the inclusion of sections into the board member administrative procedure manual. I thought that was still,
We're discussing that today.
okay. So that should be corrected, or,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Where on the page are you looking?
I'm looking right under the bold update discussion, that first paragraph, that's second line, approved the inclusion of sections into the board member administrative manual, we did not approve that.
No, that was up for discussion.
Okay, right, so I just wanted to get that on the record, but it's not. And I think that's it for me.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Azelino, yes. Dane?
Yes.
Lickman?
Yes.
McLean?
I will abstain since I wasn't at the full meeting.
Gordon?
Abstain.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 9, ratification of approved license applications.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? Call for the vote.
Azelino, yes. Dane?
Yes.
Lickman?
Yes.
McLean?
Yes.
And Gordon?
Yes.
Item number 10, ratification of denied license applications in which the applicants did not request a hearing. There are none. So we'll move on to item number 11, ratification of approved continuing education providers. So there's 6 providers with their applications as they stand at the moment.
Motion to approve continuing education providers.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay,
I have
yep.
a question.
Yeah.
Sure. What is the proper context to which we can deny? I know that there's very, I guess this is very, there are guidelines to which we can deny, and it's only based on those guidelines we can deny. Is that correct?
It's technically it's not guidelines. It's the law. The law specifies the requirements for a provider. It doesn't give us any basis for denying the license. It's or an approved provider. It's not like a licensee where they have to meet certain requirements as far as education and passing the national exam and getting fingerprinted and so on. So there are no requirements such as that for providers. So we don't have a basis to deny in the law.
And we have to continue to, I guess, vote on these throughout this process of us reevaluating and coming up with new guidelines for continuing for the applications and that sort of thing.
That's correct. The statute provides for what is required. If the board were to desire, it could promulgate regulations concerning the criteria for considering the applications. But in the absence of such regulations, there's no criteria with which to deny the application. So therefore, if the applicant meets the standards provided for by the statute, then the application should be granted.
And that is something that we're looking at and will be looking at as part of the amendments to the continuing education regulations is what are the criteria for being a provider, and so likely in the future once we adopt a new regulation we'll have more standards before someone can be a provider.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Azelino, yes. Dane?
Yes.
Lickman?
Yes.
McLean?
Yes.
And Gordon?
Yes.
We'll move on to item number 12, executive officer's report.
Okay, this should be brief. I'll start with in the agenda. There's A through G, I believe. Yes. So A is administration, and we have one new employee, Natalie Boyer, who has accepted our continuing education coordinator position, and she's hit the ground running. She came to us from an educational institution. It's the Academy for Arts, was it? Art Institute. I'm sorry. And so she has background in education, and she's doing a great job, and she should be a big help as we're amending the regs and making changes to the program. We've already started trying to achieve efficiencies in how we process regulations and not regulations but applications, and make sure that there's consistency. So it's this will be a big help, and we hope to before we can even change or amend the regulations, we hope to try to improve things and streamline things. So welcome, Natalie. And then also Andrea Mendez, who was an enforcement analyst with us, has accepted the policy analyst position that was vacated by Marcus when he was promoted. So Andrea is also here, and she's our new policy analyst, and she's fortunate to have Marcus on hand to show her the ropes. So, and she's a great employee. So I think we've got a great team, and I look forward to working with them in their new capacities. And then we have one more position that we'll be filling in enforcement, and so we're looking at some of the duties of that position. We'll probably make a few changes with the duties, but hope to get that advertised soon and filled. And then onto the budget. There's a handout for the budget. It's and shows the fund condition and the projections through year 22-23. This doesn't include the fee increases because they haven't been enacted yet. So it's once we have our fee increase in place, which so far it's been moving through the legislature with no opposition. So I anticipate come January we'll be charging the new fees, and our projections will be much more optimistic. We also have the current year showing expenditure projections through. This was through June, and I'm sorry, through the end of May. And so this was almost the end of the fiscal year. And as you can see, if you look to the bottom right corner, we're projected to have a $700,000 surplus. I don't think it'll be quite that high once all the dust has settled. There's some transactions that haven't been recorded yet, and they usually is until a month or so after the end of the fiscal year that we know exactly what we spent. But we're in very good shape as far as our budget and keeping our expenditures low. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about the budget. But
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm probably asking a question I should know the answer to, but I just noticed some huge discrepancies between, prior year and fiscal year. Like for fingerprint, I don't even know what a fingerprint report is, but what's a fingerprint report? So for 2016-17, it's 51,000.
Okay. Yeah.
With prior year 1879, and then governor's budget for this fiscal year at 5,000. Why all of a sudden was it 51,000?
We have a bottom line budget, and a lot of these we don't necessarily have to stay within budget on a particular line item. And some of these, because
Right.
it would require a budget change proposal, which is a fairly arduous process. So we don't always change these, and so that $5,000 was determined a long time ago. And so there are other areas where we have more money appropriated, and we underspend that. And so as long as bottom line we're not going over our budget, we're able to account for those things. As far as the That particular one, let me see.
Also printing. Printing has gone up substantially.
Yeah, and we have done, we
But
have,
the fingerprint, that's a big,
It was
from
just
50
weird.
to 5,000 is a big
do you remember
difference.
Marcus White at that?
2016 was at $51,000.
Yeah, we haven't had our sit down with the budget office yet. We just got this report, and so
Our travel in state's also substantially elevated. 22 to 62,000. So what accounts for that?
you know I'm good.
It's gone.
I'm sorry. It's what?
It is gone.
I didn't hear what you said.
Well, actual expenditures from last year to the budget this year, but not the current year expenditures, 30,000. So but the budget you're saying, Robert, is there, but if we go over it as we already are.
Okay. Well, see, now the budget is what we're appropriated by the legislature and the governor. That's a finite amount. So current, what you want to look at if you're comparing prior year and like prior year expenditures, and then there's the column that says current year expenditures. So that's where we're showing actual expenditures. So if we go to fingerprints, it's
51,000.
yeah. So that you know what, I have to double check on that, but it appears to me that that's something. And Dixie, perhaps you can clarify. Is that something that we get billed in a lump sum at the end of the fiscal year? Because that shows in month 13, but if you look at month 11 right next to it, it's consistent with month 11 for this year. So I'm thinking that we'll probably be hit with another big bill.
Yes, we get the fingerprint billing on a monthly basis, and so it depends on how many are submitted.
Yeah, and sometimes I know this past year, there were, because not everything, even though there's certain things that are taken out of our fund automatically, like when it's something that goes to Department of Justice, there's certain other state agencies and control agencies that the money is just automatically transferred to them. So these don't always show in real time. And so this is looking at month 11, which would be May of this year. The fiscal year ended at the end of June. And so our next report will show how much we spent through the full, and then they do month 13, because there's things that don't post right away that end up getting posted. So month 13 is what we actually spent in the prior year, and we won't know where all the dust settles until a few months or a month or two from now, when they get all of that posted.
So we'll have this again at the next board meeting?
Yes, we'll have this again, and
we'll clarify the discrepancy in that number. So
Okay, not just that, let's make sure that we take a closer look, please, and clarify any major discrepancies that you may find that we may have even missed here. Additionally, Robert, how often do you meet with the budget?
We generally meet with them quarterly to look at projections and see if there's anything out of the ordinary, like, because we want to make sure we're not on track to exceed our budget, which isn't the case. Again, we're well at this point we're well under our budget as far as expenditures, and once we have the month 13 numbers, we probably won't have a $700,000 surplus, but I'm certain it'll be at least half that.
So is it fair to ask that we distinguish which, when these reports are done, that we distinguish which reports are, I guess, more accurately reflective in that you have met with them versus those that you have not met with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the frustration for us is that the state budget process is extremely confusing, and it doesn't make sense. When Dr. Elginer was on the board, and she has an MBA and an accountancy background, and even she this wasn't the state budget process isn't the same as the real world, and so it's sometimes hard to follow. And me as a non-budget person, sometimes it's like they'll explain things, we'll go through these, and they'll explain and to my satisfaction, but then I'm not always good at translating it. So I can even have somebody from the budget office, preferably if we have a meeting in Sacramento. But our next one will be in the Bay Area, and I'm sure they can send somebody to attend the meeting and to address those kinds of questions.
Wouldn't there be some benefit in maybe what Dr. McLean's asking to get these governor's budget numbers in line with our actual expenditures and reallocate them?
That would be ideal, but that's a huge workload. That would be because for each line item you'd have to do a budget change proposal. So there's
So are most organizations in the state running like this?
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. They don't, unless you're asking for more money. Most agencies don't do a budget change proposal unless they need more money. If we get a legislative mandate that requires us to do something that we'll have to hire 5 new employees or something, and we don't have sufficient appropriation in our current budget, then we would have to request more money in our budget to be able to do those. But usually, just to correct discrepancies in a line item, a budget change proposal isn't done.
So the governor's budget that's listed here is just a suggestion?
The budget is
different than
and that's a good point. But the governor's budget is basically again a bottom line. It's like they're saying that we'll allow you to spend this much. And
we spend 5,000, but we spend 50.
No, well, I'm talking about the total the total appropriation. Which is for this year was $4,217,000. So this from the time about close to 20 years ago when I first went into management, I had a hard time grasping this. It's like, but we're exceeding this line item, and the budget office and the staff from there has always told me and continues to tell me, it's a bottom line budget, so we're not concerned if you go over in a given line item as long as overall you're staying within. So I can understand the confusion, and I can again usually at least once a year we'll have somebody from the budget office attend, and they're better able to articulate some of these oddities with the state budget process. But we do monitor expenditures closely. We are ensuring that we're staying within budget and not exceeding or not spending more money than we have to spend. And we've been successful with that over the years. So on to we have the report, the licensing trends, and this gives you this is the report we have in all of our packets. Lets you see where we're at this point. As of June, we have 13,075 licensees. It's not a huge difference from the last board meeting, and there's various other stats regarding licensing on this report. If anybody has any questions about any of those.
I do, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm looking for it. I read in the minutes, maybe Sergio can help me out. Sergio asked for data from around the nation on something in this section.
Just want to see what the trends were with all the other states.
We have been researching that. We should have that by the
October meeting.
At the October meeting, we'll have a report on what the licensing trends are with the schools and with other state boards as far as number of licensees and whether they've seen an increase or decrease in their population.
Okay.
And last but
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
Robert. This chart for total population of clear chiropractic licenses, That goes from July of 17 to June of 18, is that what it is? So it goes
Yeah. So that actually
that-
covers the entire fiscal year.
I was
This one.
hoping that was July of 18. Okay, I was hoping the numbers were going up, not down.
No,
July of 18 is on top.
It is.
No. July of 17 is on top.
Yes.
Oh.
We are on a downward trend.
Yes.
Okay, that's
and-
what I want to know.
Yes.
Yeah, I bring that up every board meeting, but I'd like to be, I keep hoping that one of these board meetings I'll be able to say it's going the other direction, but it's been slowly but consistently going down.
Okay.
So if we can include in that report, Marcus, not only what the other states are seeing license-wise with chiropractic, but also the other specialties. Certainly in California with physical therapy and medicine and osteopathy and naturopathy.
Yeah, we have. I know we have looked at numbers for some other health boards in California to see how their populations are, if they're stagnant or growing. So we'll include that. So
just to be clear, are you fine with just California as far as the other professions, or do you want us to actually look across the country as well?
I'm fine with California. I mean, I think the question I have in my mind is it a downward trend throughout the entire country with chiropractic, which I unfortunately believe it is.
Anecdotally,
and we can answer that.
That is, and then certainly in California, my understanding is the other specialties are on an upward trend and chiropractic is on a downward trend, and I think it's important for all of us to be aware of that, especially the schools.
Okay.
Because the schools are unfortunately only sometimes looking at their enrollment, but not with what's happening with licensees.
So are you guys interested as far as the college's enrollment and also graduation? Because I think
I'm not so concerned about that. I mean,
Okay.
the colleges could speak for themselves here, but the licensees is what's only people that are practicing, hopefully. Intentionally.
So on to enforcement. Yes.
Sorry. Did I miss the compliance and stuff? Oh, okay.
That's compliance is enforcement. So we have the far right column shows this fiscal year, and we just completed, because this goes up to July 10th. So this shows the data for the full fiscal year and then the prior 4 fiscal years. And looking at our numbers of complaints and various types of discipline, we're very consistent with last year. This year we've issued a few more letters of admonishment, and citations and citation fine amounts are pretty consistent with last year. So there's usually they're not quite this close, but we are on this particular year. There are no major changes in our enforcement stats. Does anybody have any questions about enforcement?
Sure,
Okay.
since you asked. Just wanted to ask you if you knew any details or had any thoughts on why we have such a great increase in letter of admonishments. Is that because they're just less egregious infractions, or becoming a little more
We've focused more attention on the auditing CE compliance, and we've been as we take a progressive approach when we audit and find that somebody didn't complete the required number of hours of CE. Generally, the first time we'll issue them a letter of admonishment. We won't issue a citation or pursue any greater discipline. So we have been, most of those probably can be attributed to violations of CE requirements. and there's more of a breakdown of all of this information. Following that, there's some charts, and there's the more detailed information as far as the description of the accusations that we filed and disciplinary actions taken.
I wanted to just say thank you for that information on that breakdown of the accusations and the violations. That's very helpful. I think it gives us a lot of insight.
Yeah, that's been because we share this information on our website and we put it in our newsletters, and that does seem to be one of the things that a lot of our licensees and people who view that stuff are more interested in, is seeing the enforcement cases, and hopefully it's educational for licensees so that they can avoid making those same mistakes. So I don't have anything further unless there's any questions.
Any other questions? We'll move on to item number 13, review, discussion, possible action to establish a special committee of the board to discuss opening the Chiropractic Initiative Act of 1922. So this was an agenda item that was requested by Mr. Rufinos, who unfortunately had a emergency and he couldn't be at the meeting today. So I'm going to propose to table this to the next board meeting.
I would
because he's
actually
not
still like
here.
to discuss this here.
Yeah, there's no reason you can't discuss it.
Okay.
Yes, so several things. Number one, we've looked at this prior.
Sure.
Number two, we've discussed with Dr. Meeker, Dr. Oberstein, and Dr. Scringe about, and they've sent over proposals on changes they'd like to see us adopt so that they can make their curriculums more contemporary. I just recently spoke to Dr. Oberstein last week, and so they have a desire to do so. I know Mr. Pulio's exchanged some emails with them, and it's as much as it may be quite labor intensive on our part, I also think that if that is what the schools need to do or want to do to make their educational experience more contemporary, that it's incumbent upon us to do so. So I do think we should have a special committee look at that. I'm fine heading up that work, and I'm also fine, and I've expressed to him that there may be a lot of work that they need to do on their own front to propose some regulations so that we may not need to open up the act. The issue, quite frankly, is what can we do to make our licensees and our profession more contemporary without opening up the act, or is it something that we need to open up the act? As many chiropractors don't understand that as much as the act is a governing body that we have all benefited from, anybody could open it if they want to. Any one of the legislators can, and unfortunately, as most of the board members know, it's been quite limiting depending on how one wishes to interpret it. So when it comes to the educational requirements, I do think we should listen to our schools and the presidents that are desiring to do something on their front that will ultimately help licensees and help the public.
So I want to just clarify a couple things, because the board is currently working with the schools on some regulation changes that don't involve the act, although I think some of the terminology, especially with the percentages and the prescriptive descriptions of things in the act, may be helpful for the schools as well. So the agenda item just is in general saying opening up the act. I am suggesting that either as a board or in the committee that we specify amendments that we are specifically looking at. I mean, the term opening the act is just, it's very broad. So yeah, so how
you're
about,
trying to say?
yeah, what amendments
Instead
are we
of-
looking at,
Well, you
through
may
the
not even need
special
to do
committee.
amendments if we're able to get things through regulation
which is what we're trying
that
with
are
the
going to be
curriculum stuff.
favorable,
Right.
then we may not need to open or amend.
Okay.
But on the same level, we need to take a realistic view at things and see if all of what we do starts with the schools, and with our licensees, and we need to, I think, honor what the schools are requesting.
Absolutely.
My understanding is the board is not doing anything in that regard. Would you like to weigh in on this?
Well, it's not that we're not doing anything. We do have, that's something that the schools did provide us with. They went through and identified the provisions and the regulations and the act that they would like to amend. So some of that, or most of that, can be done through regulation. There are a few provisions that they would want to change that would require an amendment to the act, because we have to have authority in the act before we can amend a regulation. And so, the question is, do we want to make all the changes but those that would require an amendment to the act, or do we want to do comprehensive? And then as far as the working on the proposed language that the schools have sent, we've started looking at that. We had a meeting with you and Dr. Dane to discuss those changes. There's a lot of work to be done. We also have several regulations in the hopper already. So we could certainly make this a number one priority if that's the will of the board.
Well, I spoke to Dr. Oberstein and I said, if this is important enough to make the amendments for them, and the amount of work is precluding the board from doing it, why doesn't the school hire some regulators or some people with some expertise in regulation to write some of these regulations so that they can provide us a more finished product? And he is completely fine with that.
He's expressed that they would be they would be willing to do that, because I know they've already put a lot of work into it and they've identified the problems and given a brief explanation of why they want to make the change. But then the formal rulemaking process, there's a lot of justification that needs to go into.
I understand
have to demonstrate the necessity. So we'll probably need to work with them throughout the process to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as what changes they want to make, and ensuring that we have the sufficient justification to pass through Office of Administrative Law. But
I personally just think it's an important enough topic that we shouldn't shelve this because of it being too much work, or we don't have resources or staff for that. If they're willing to do what they need to do and do the groundwork on their end, I'd like to get the rest of the board to weigh in on this, on their opinion, because
I agree. Have you thought about how many people, or would it just be a two-person special committee, or would there be more on the committee? Have you considered any of those considerations, Dr. Dane?
So I think we're talking about two separate things here.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're talking about, on one hand, we're talking about curriculum regulations, which we've been discussing with the schools, and we do think it's important. Right now, the agenda item is for a special committee to look at the Chiropractic Act. I think that the enforcement committee and whoever else they want to add on to that would be perfect. I think Dr. Azzolino is an ideal person to lead a special committee to look at amendments to the act, and whoever he wants, whether it's a two-person special committee or a three-person, I will leave that up to Dr. Azzolino.
let me bring you guys up to date because not everybody was on the board. So years ago, Dr. Stensler represented the group on behalf of the CCA. Dr. Robert Pulio was there. Were you there? When we met in San Francisco, we had the head of the ICA, the head of the CCA, all the presidents of the colleges, and we did meet to discuss this very topic. And at that time, it seemed like most of the interest was around amending the educational curriculum, and we were constrained on some fronts with what we could and couldn't do because of the act. So yes, they're different topics, but I think they're one and the same, and I think if we can get to work on educating some of the educational curriculums, we may not need to open up the act. No one at that time expressed any tremendous interest in scope expansion in regards to other venues like New Mexico did with an Advanced Initiative Act of Pharmaceuticals or anything of the sort. It was just more so modifying the educational requirements in curriculum. I do think we do have a tremendous opportunity to better define what we do in the Chiropractic Act, because we've all benefited from it being very elusive over the years, but it's a double-edged sword. It's also bitten us many times, because when people want to criticize or call what they do, and the physical therapists want to manipulate and say what they do is different because of their intention and call it a high-velocity mobilization, we really, fall short, because we have people continually point back to the 1922 Act. We've had attorneys that represent the board say, well, if it's not in the 1922 Act, we can't do it. Well, we all know there's quite a few things that are being taught in school today, from laser to x-ray, to a lot of things that were not taught in 1922. So that's a different topic. I think the profession at large needs to make a decision on, do we want to keep skating by on this, elusive act, or do we want to better define what we do so that we could hold our stake and uphold what we do best to represent chiropractic. So, they're different topics, but I do think they fall one and the same, because a lot of it starts with education.
They do. Sorry to interrupt, but they do overlap, and we do have curriculum on the agenda. So we can discuss that at that time. I guess the question right now is, until we know, like, if I think,
where's the curriculum on the agenda? I didn't see that. I
I
thought it was going to. That's why I didn't see it.
It is
on. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was on there, but
It is on there. Let me see.
I'm not seeing it. That's why we're discussing this now. And
19.
if it is, I apologize.
19.
curriculum requirements.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, so we can discuss that. It's not a problem discussing it, but I think for right now, discussing opening up the act is a little bit putting the cart before the horse.
Sure.
So I think, because I don't know, because I can advise the board, and certainly with the assistance of legal counsel, we can navigate the process if and when the board determines that we want to make amendments to the act. So the question is identifying everything we want to change, and then deciding whether we want to go forward. And and there's because there are there's a rather long process. So if we do want to do that, we'll want to start planning now, because we'll have to enact legislation. The legislature and the governor will have to enact legislation to put the act on the ballot, and then it'll have to go on the ballot and pass a vote, and then probably would become operative the next January. So we're looking a few years out, even if we were to start today.
Well, I would think that the immediate wise move would be to start with the curriculum and see what we can do and hopefully achieve through just regulation.
Well, and also I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. You expressed some desire about defining some of the things in the act. Is that something that you want a special committee so you can talk about that, or do you want to just stay with the curriculum regulations, then we get to 19, talk about moving those more to the top of the priority list?
I think that same committee could oversee those things so that things are at least being looked at critically and moving forward. My concern is just having things stall. If we can't change and make the necessary curriculum requirements because of time or resources or because of the act, then we need to be able to look at the act critically and have a meaningful conversation about what are we going to do here. I just don't want to keep pushing things aside, and it's also been relayed to me that the schools are concerned that we just keep touching on this subject, but yet everything
Dr.
stalls.
Azzolino and Dr. Dane,
Yeah.
with the full with the hiring of the additional staff that we have, we're fully staffed as far as policy positions and people capable of doing regulations. So just so you guys know that the curriculum regulation will become something that we can make progress on. So as far as staff is concerned, the staff resources and time is not going to be an issue or hindrance to us completing this regulation.
Well, yeah, with the clarification that we have, if you look at agenda item, like the last agenda item.
But my point is, we have a lot of work to be done.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But so we have a lot of regs that are in various stages of completion or haven't even begun yet, and so we, certainly we can devote the resources to the curriculum regulations if the board determines that that's what they want to be the highest priority. And we're not going to be able to move all of these. We have now, because we've had quite a bit of staff change over the past couple of years. We're pretty steady right now, and so I feel like we're in a good place to start moving quickly on regs. And I hope to knock some of these out soon. But we can move curriculum up to the top.
Well,
I'm going to suggest, number one, we can talk about reorganizing priorities of regulations when we get there. But we're still dealing with number 13, whether we're going to have a committee for discussing amendments to the act, or if we're going to not do that and revisit revisit that after we decide what's going on with the curriculum regulations.
Why don't we have one committee deal with both of those? And number two, I think the cart's before the horse. If we're worried about reprioritizing things, there's a lot of work that needs to be done before the schools have a meaningful product that we could even propose to move forward in regulation. So we just keep moving everything else forward, and in the meantime, over the next 3 months or 6 months, whatever it is, we have their work, whether we have to privatize some of that work, get it ready so that we can move it forward as a regulation.
I have a suggestion, because I think these are both topics of importance, and if we are going to amend the act, it's a lengthy process and it's an expensive process. I would suggest that we don't just amend it to make changes to curriculum, that we look at it comprehensively, and so we might want to keep the focus on curriculum. But while we're doing that, we should have a committee to review the entire act, not opening it up, but just reviewing all of the provisions and identifying changes that need to be made. And if we are going to try to amend it, do it all at once.
Okay, I'm sorry, I may not have made myself clear. I do think we should do that. I think we should push as much as we can with regulation for the curriculum. I think we should empower and enable the schools to do what they need to do.
Yes.
On their end, so that they could help us move things forward. I think that committee should also take a very critical look at the act, and we should try to not open up the act,
right,
but we should try to clean up our regulations to better reflect whatever we can through regulation. And that stuff can be happening simultaneously, and should we run into a roadblock, I want that roadblock not to be staff resources or time, that roadblock being something, legally that says, oh no, you can't make these amendments to the curriculum or to other aspects, then we deal with the act at that time. But there's no need to actually open up the act right now. Let's see what we
Yeah,
can
certainly.
Can I make a comment? Is it possible for us to make a motion to have a committee to review the act and come back with information on any changes or suggestions or whatever might be for number 13, the review and discussion of the act?
Well,
It's a special committee to look at the act.
The agenda item itself is limited to opening up the act, which is a colloquial way of saying to go through the initiative process that Mr. Pulio mentioned. So if there's going to be action taken at this point, it would have to be limited to the formation of that sort of committee.
of a committee to actually open that.
Yeah, and
To look at the
discuss.
possibilities.
Why can't we just make a committee to look at the act? I mean,
Yeah.
if that committee decides to not open it and has a recommendation to try to pass regulation,
Then that, so be it, I agree. We
They-
should make a
well-
motion.
Do we need a different agenda item just to have a
No.
committee?
I think that's
That's
what,
what I just
yeah, because
said.
that's not what's on the agenda.
well,
It's-
I'm going to make a motion, if we can't legally do it, I'm gonna make a motion that we establish a one or two person committee. You could decide to look at the act, whether it be open it, and if that committee so decides that opening the act is not a good choice, they could come back to the board
Make
with some
on what would
recommendations,
be.
and that committee can also speak to the schools about
Yeah,
what their
because I think it
desires
actually
are.
says it's to discuss opening the chiropractic act, so it doesn't say it has to open the act.
The-
It says it's a committee of the board to discuss.
We're gonna hit 100 years before we actually make a
I
move
know.
on
Yeah.
this.
So-
Well, I just have one comment though. Mr. Rufino isn't here, and he proposed this agenda item, so I don't know what his intent was when he proposed this.
Okay,
If he
well-
had something else in mind.
But I have a motion on the
He
floor.
has a motion on the floor, I'll second that motion.
Now we
So is that
discuss.
admissible? Okay.
I
I mean,
wanna-
this is a legal question, not a policy question.
Yeah, so, would you please restate the motion?
I'd like to propose a motion to make a committee to discuss opening of the Chiropractic Initiative Act.
That's what we have right
That's what
That's
it's.
what we have
They're
right now.
gonna- That's good, they're gonna
Correct.
discuss it.
now. That's what it says right
Yeah, I
now.
know.
I second that motion.
And come back to the board with recommendations.
Certainly.
Is that permissible?
That is permissible.
Any discussion,
Public comment?
public comment?
Good afternoon. My name is Bridget Grammy. I'm the director of the Center for Public Interest Law at the University of San Diego School of Law. And most of you may not be familiar with our center, but we have been monitoring state licensing agencies, especially occupational licensing agencies, since 1980. And we focus on ensuring that these agencies are protecting the public and adhering to their mission of protecting the public instead of the profession. So just to give you that background, we do support, if you do want to go through with this process of looking at the act, there are a couple things that I'd like to recommend you think about. But if you do establish a committee, I strongly recommend that you do have a 3-person committee and that it be subject to Bagley-Keene so that the public can participate in that process. It's a very important issue, especially if it's going to be an initiative, and the public should be part of that process. With respect to the specific issues I ask that you consider, one of them has to do with the board composition itself, and that has to do with the North Carolina case. I'm not sure if you are all familiar with this. I'm sure your attorney can tell you. But right now, in the way that your act reads, you are a supermajority of professional members on your board. I think it's 5-2 or 7-2, perhaps. And I really think that that should be changed to, I mean, our recommendation would be a public member majority. People have different viewpoints on that, but at least to have it be an equal balance. So that's, for me, and I think for you all, I think that would benefit you because there are some antitrust implications there when you have a supermajority of professional members on your board. The second thing that, and I actually don't have your section in front of me, your code section in front of me, but all other DCA boards have in their statutes a public protection mandate, a statutory mandate written in that public protection is the highest priority of your board. So if you are looking at this process of going through and revising your act, I think that should be another thing that should be considered. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Brian Stenzel, California Chiropractic Association. I just want to say that we appreciate you bringing this up and all the transparency. Of course, a lot of our members and our board would be concerned about kind of opening up that Pandora's box if it comes to that, but we know that you're going to weigh all options. Not only that, we have somewhat of a hostile legislature towards the chiropractic profession right now to an extent, so timing is important to consider, and also from the public about access that they can do. We know that it takes a lot. Anyone can open the act, we know that, but it takes a lot to do that. And once it does start getting into a initiative process, different things could start happening that we don't intend to. So I know we want to do this as a last resort possibility. We want to be current and keep the school education relevant and everything else, but I just want to put that trust in there that we're going to do everything possible to try to avoid it and have fallback that we're not expecting, that's unintended. So, that's all. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Before we, I have one more point of discussion before we call for the vote. Because I think we talked about a lot of things before this comes up for the vote. So we're gonna establish a special committee of the board to discuss opening the Chiropractic Initiative Act. And so there's the discussions that we identified in this special committee is to look at not only educational components of the act, but other things in case that we do decide to do something with the act, right? Just to look at the act in totality. Okay. And I guess this would be a question for Ken or Robert. While we're deciding on this, do we need to decide on the committee, or can that come later?
Well, the current motion is to establish a committee.
Okay, so we'll vote on that.
You could vote on that, or
Okay.
there could be an amendment to the motion to discuss to add the composition of the committee. If there's a 2-member advisory committee, it would not have to comply with Bagley-Keene. If there was more than 2 members, then it would have to comply with Bagley-Keene.
Well, I think we should call for the vote on establishing the committee.
Yeah, my recommendation is a 2-person committee, with all due respect to what you're saying about a 3-person committee. This is just a research, and there's not going to be any action taken with the magnitude of what we're dealing with here without bringing it back to the board for a full vote.
It always has to come back to the board, and the public will have chance to participate.
So, in respect for what the schools are feeling of things not moving forward, I do believe we may be a little more efficient in working with the 2-person committee, that we can just empower them to make the changes that they need to make with the regulations.
Okay, but we're talking about a committee to review the act right now. We're not
I'm
talking
going to
about
make
a committee to.
I'm going to make a motion down the road in a couple more sentences here that the curriculum be the same committee to deal with that, because I think it all falls under one umbrella. I think we're getting caught in minutia here and nothing's moving forward, and I could already.
Okay, well, let's call for the vote on this then.
Dr. Esselino, you may wish to consider amending the motion to specify a 2-member advisory committee.
Okay, so I will thank you, Mr. Swenson, and I will amend my motion to incorporate what Mr. Swenson just stated.
A 2-member advisory committee of the board to discuss opening the Chiropractic Initiative Act.
And look at all aspects of the act, including curriculum requirements.
Okay. Would you like to call? Is there any other discussion? Any other public comment? Yes.
I'll just be brief. I mean, I still think that it should be public, but you should at least have 1 public member. If you're going to only have 2, I think the other person should be public.
They're not actionable items, though.
I know.
It's all coming before. This is an advisory committee to look at everything here is going to come before the board. The public is certainly going to have their opportunity to weigh in. I respect what you say about the North Carolina statute, but as you know, we do have we have such oversight in the DCA, and there's a lot of question whether we should be in the DCA. That the DCA has veto power. So even with the composition of our board, we still are not anywhere near antitrust because of the veto power of the DCA and the governor.
Well, they're actually separate reasons. I was bringing up the antitrust issue just for your board composition. But as far as this, I just think anything that can be done in the public with public input is better. So I still, regardless of antitrust, would still say that we would prefer it to be Bagley-Keene. That is up to you. However, if you're not going to do that, we would recommend your other committee member be a public member. As in a public member of your board, not.
Right. Can I just say, just to be, completely clear, just because our committees are 2-member, we still notice and allow the public to participate in the meetings. It doesn't mean that we're never going to let the public participate in meetings just because it's 2 members. But it allows us to have some discussion or to move things along a little more readily without some of the arduous things that may tie our hands to just having a discussion.
I understand. I mean, I do, but also then you're not required, and we think that you should be required to notice in advance. And there's a lot of things that are required under Bagley-Keene that encourage more public participation and discussion. So I understand your intention is to do that, but you wouldn't be legally required to do that. And we believe that those things should be taken place in public.
I appreciate your input. I have a question for you.
Sure.
We haven't met you before, so thank you
Right.
for coming and giving your
You're welcome.
input.
You're welcome.
Is there any reason why you've shown up today with these concerns and not previously?
Are you local?
I am.
Yeah.
We're at the University of San Diego, and we sometimes have monitored this board on and off over the years. You probably will see one of our law students this year. We have more students this year, so we'll probably have one assigned to come to your meetings, so you'll be seeing more. But that just kind of ebbs and flows depending on our workload.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Steve Jaffe from SCU. Just wanted to carry a message that when you're looking at the regulations or the act and looking at opening up the curriculum, you take into account CCE and their requirements as governing, sort of, for lack of a term, governing bodies over the university.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I would hope that all of the schools would be very intimately involved with this here because none of us are educational people. And we would hope that you guys would have
Definitely, and
guidance, so
our
we'd be
new
following
dean, Dr. Egan, definitely would be smack in the middle for helping that.
Right. Dr. Stensel?
Sorry. May sound very silly, and I ask this very respectfully. Maybe for a PR thing, if you could possibly modify the motion to not use the word open and say to just.
It's on the agenda.
It has to. So for the new one, it has to say it's open.
Unfortunately, that's
Because we're going to be answering about 3,000
I know
calls
you
when
are.
it shows up in the
I know
agenda.
you are, and we're just gonna discuss, so
Yeah.
I'll emphasize the word discuss.
Okay,
And,
thank you.
and you can, and we'd like to make it clear that we would have liked to have a little bit different language, but because of what's on the agenda, this is the language that we have to use.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get through the other issues on the agenda also.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair, did we have a second for the amendment to the motion?
I'll second it.
All right, you want to call for the vote?
Azzalino, yes.
Dane, yes.
Dane. Lickman.
Yes.
McLean.
Yes.
And Gordon.
Yes.
All right. We're going to move on to agenda item number 14, which is review, discussion, and possible action regarding procedures to elect board officers. So as this is described in the memo of this section, this came up at our last board meeting, but because Dr. Beyond wasn't available to attend and we thought it was important to have board member input, we postponed it to today. So unfortunately, Mr. Rufino isn't here to talk about this today, but it is on the agenda and up for discussion. So the first part is some options for nominating and electing board officers. And the back of the page is the same stuff that was in our packet last time, is staff recommendations. So it's up for discussion. So just,
I have a question here. We were last told that we had to do only one vote a year and we couldn't re-vote or anything of the sort. Is there not a possibility of voting for officers at the tail end of the year so that there can be an onboarding process and those people do not assume the new seat until the January meeting? Because I do think there would be some benefit to having some training of people coming on.
Unfortunately, the Initiative Act specifies they shall be elected in January. So it literally means what it says.
All right.
So, yeah, unfortunately, that's another thing that's specified in the act. So first, I guess I'll start the discussion with, are there board members that disagree with staff recommendations?
I disagree with the nominations and elections being occurring in the January meeting. I think that they should, at the very minimum, nominations should occur prior to that. As stated, especially if we state that someone can nominate another member, because that member needs to have time to address one of the issues that we recommended or was suggested, and I agree with, is that those nominated should be able to articulate or write or to tell why they should become that specific, why they're interested and qualified to do that job, basically.
Well, if we do self-nominations, then people know they're gonna be nominated because they're gonna nominate themselves and they'd be prepared to make that statement.
But I also believe people should be able to nominate others. I mean, I don't see why we would preclude that.
But we cannot do that in January based on statute, right?
And we have to vote in January, we can nominate beforehand.
Oh, you can nominate before,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah. So if it's a majority of the board that wants to nominate before, then we would need to make some concrete suggestions on how that would happen.
I think we could have a special meeting, whether it be teleconference, obviously need to be noticed, and people put in their nominations at that time, or it can be done via email through the EO. I just think it would be good for people to reflect on, if they are going to be taking a position, what that means, and if there is an onboarding process, and we just make sure that we have a good succession plan, that we train each and every person, so that we have some continuity of the agenda and what needs to be done.
Can nominations be done at the last meeting of the year and elections be done at the first?
Good. Yep.
There's nothing stopping the board from doing that. There are, the memorandum that was prepared by the executive officer outlines some reasons why you may not want to have a delay.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Well, there are disadvantages to having a delay, practical disadvantages. It kind of gets into the policy realm, but there's this idea that the board composition could change, a person's ability to serve might change if there's too long of a delay between the nomination period and the vote.
But we could deal with that at the time. I mean, I think, I understand the challenges with Bagley Keene, if there's nomination and people lobbying and whatnot, but I would hope that, as we continue to go, people are above that, and we realize that the onboarding process, to me, and the succession plan is actually much more important, so that we have people sitting in the appropriate seats that are well-trained, and we have a good idea of,
But nominating early doesn't make that happen. Succession planning would be voting early and having a person sitting in that seat. Just nominating doesn't mean.
But we also don't want to have surprises, because if
But it
people.
still would be a surprise at the end of the day, because if you nominate someone so if you did what I suggested and say nominate at the end of the year and vote at the beginning of the year, someone else may come and say, I want to nominate myself at the beginning of the year because someone else has left the board.
Correct.
In December.
But
So in actuality, it's almost like we have to do the nomination and the election because it's only the board members that we have at the time that are able to really run.
Yes, but on another level, someone has the opportunity from November till January to reflect on why they want that position.
And they may very well be gone in December.
Well, if they're gone, they're gone.
We know when the terms are ending unless you resign early, we know when the terms are ending. But may I just say that I think that the persons being nominated particularly should or like to reflect upon whether they wanted to accept that nomination, particularly if it's coming from someone else as well, and that gives them time versus in the immediacy of being on a teleconference and nominating someone and then deciding which one of those persons to vote for all within minutes, I think doesn't give the voter nor the nominee the proper time for reflection.
Let me just say one more thing, because this whole idea of this a surprise element, as a mature adult, kind of gets to me, because if I know I want an office and I'm going to elect myself, I should be ready when I'm going to do it. If someone else is going to nominate me, I should be prepared. As a member of this board, I should be prepared for whatever office I may want. So if someone nominates me for that office, I should be prepared to say, yeah, I accept, because I've thought about these offices in November, even though we didn't have a nomination. And here we are in January, and I wanted that office, and now that someone else has nominated me, I'm prepared to speak on my behalf. So I should know what I want already, and I should be willing to say no, that's not something I want to do, but I'll nominate myself for this particular office. So I think we can take some responsibility in that moment and say, I know what I'm ready to take. I know what I'm ready to take on if I'm eligible for any of these offices, and if I want any of them, I'm ready to take that on. I think reflecting on this is sort of a self-reflection, like I'm thinking right now. I'm not thinking about taking an office. So if someone were to nominate me, I would be prepared to say, no, thank you. I don't accept that right now. So I think we can reflect on it without having to be nominated like a surprise type of nomination.
Part of the challenge, the reason why we're having this conversation is because the way we've been doing it, all the nominations were not out in the open right away. And so I do think there's benefit to everybody, all the nominations being out there so you know who's on the slate. And I think there's also great benefit to people that are self-nominating, speaking their mind on why they believe they're most fit for the position. When it's all
Don't
said,
they get to do that anyway?
we haven't been. No, we have not. It was kind of throwing a name out there and everybody decide and vote. And so I think it was just poorly done. I think it wasn't well thought after. And when it's all said and done, we want to make sure that we have a strong board on all fronts, and it just gives everybody the ability to speak their mind.
And the best representation of those who will serve in the individual positions, not to say that any one of us couldn't or maybe maybe you should know at that moment that you want to accept, but I still think that
I'm just saying, let's just pretend, if we were to pretend that we were nominated in November, but the nomination actually happened in January, I don't see the difference if we have our mindset. I think it's a matter of mindset.
But everybody doesn't have their mindset at the same time.
Correct, so even if they were to nominate you in
I would
November, then it
I
would
were
give you,
nominated, I would
then
say,
you would start thinking
you know
about
what, let me think about this.
Okay,
Okay,
fair
because
enough.
I'm on at that time, I might be the chair of a committee, I might not be the chair of a committee, I might be the chair of two, I might be on two different committees, there's a lot of factors that would go into, okay, well, do I want to reflect upon, do I have the proper time to give the position what it needs to serve in the best way possible?
Okay.
Multiple nominations.
What about?
Well, you have multiple nominations. Do you choose to accept one or two? Do you wait till January?
Well, and that's another thing. We've had multiple nominations.
Yeah.
So.
And are you able to do that? Can you do multiple nominations?
We haven't had tight rules on any of that stuff. This is why we're having the conversation now, so that we can clean up a procedural process.
And that's why I'm asking the questions too. I'm just trying to be clear in terms of what is the problem with
So that's an issue
nominating.
too. If you nominate, not only if you nominate on the day of the elections, but if you're nominating beforehand, let's say that Dr. McLean is nominated for chair and vice chair, what happens then? What happens?
The same thing that would happen in January if I was nominated for all, right?
Well, the next thing to decide is, do you, if we vote all at once, then you have to decide which one you wanna run for? Or do we vote one at a time and then?
Because you can stay nominated
Exactly,
until it's time for a
exactly.
vote, so we wouldn't
Exactly.
know which one you're actually
Exactly.
considering over that amount of time.
Right,
Is there,
And it should also.
so that's why
be
there's pros and
yeah.
cons to each one.
Yeah.
And
I have a question, Ken, is there not anything in Robert's Rules of Orders or what any of the other boards are doing that could give us some guidance so we're not reinventing the wheel here?
We looked at all the other boards and that was in the last board
Yeah.
meeting material.
But how about
Well,
Robert's Rule of Order?
Robert's Rules of Order provides basically for the three methods that are discussed in the memo.
Mhm.
And there are advantages and disadvantages discussed within Robert's Rules concerning each of the methods. Now, I'm not the board's parliamentarian,
Mhm.
but using Robert's Rules as a source of possible legal authority, then I can say that the method that's been recommended is consistent, in this memo, is consistent with recommendations in Robert's Rules as far as nominating your slate of candidates for a particular office and then immediately voting on that office, filling that position, then moving on to the next position. The advantages are discussed at some length in Robert's Rules, but essentially it avoids a lot of potential confusion and delay, especially because this board is required to elect officers in January. So if there's a highly contested election with multiple people going for an office, there could be multiple rounds of balloting in order to reach a result where someone is actually elected to the position. So I think that if you're looking at Robert's Rules as a source of authority, the recommended procedure would be consistent with the recommended best practice in Robert's Rules.
Thank you. Are we gonna be able to
Is
chip
this
away
something
at
we have
this?
to vote on now?
Well, it's an actionable item, so the question is, are we gonna chip away at one thing here at a time? You know, unfortunately, Mr. Rufino's not here, that I know this is something that he was pretty passionate and,
Let me just remind everybody that the next board meeting is our last board meeting of the year. So if there's gonna be, if we're gonna make changes to this and we're gonna have nominating at the last board meeting of the year, then we probably need to deal with it.
so we know we can't change the election, that's in January.
That's in
The question is, do we want to
So
have nominations in November?
why don't we just start with number one, nominating? It seems like it's the request of at least Dr. Esposito and Dr. McLean that we do nominations at the last meeting of the year. So that can be the first one. And then
Should we make a motion on each individual item here?
No, I think we need to do it all as one, because one thing is gonna affect another thing.
I
So
would
it's all gonna have
recommend,
to be as one.
although this has been discussed at some length in a prior meeting, it was properly agendized, here's back on the agenda for formulation of a motion and a vote. So I think that going through the possibilities would make some sense at this point.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So number two, the nominating procedure would, that's something if we're going to, well, no, because if we're gonna do it ahead of time, yeah, at the last meeting of the year. So are we gonna do it by roll call? Are we gonna do it by ballot?
You mean nominating for each office?
Open the floor? Yeah.
Well, we're obviously not voting there, so B does not,
Right, so we're looking at probably D. and then E as an option.
I think I don't know that now with the change in the first part, the first sequence, it seems as if it's not going to be easily followed by going down this list. But I think it's a good place to start. So I think you guys should just speak to and articulate your ideal process and not be beholden to this list.
Well,
That's my
Right,
recommendation.
so if the nominations happen at the last board meeting of the year, how are those nominations gonna happen? Is it gonna be self-nomination, which it seems like,
Well, you can't
Yeah, it
preclude
would be
people from
both.
self-nominating.
no, I don't know why it wouldn't be self-nomination, because it just eliminates so many problems. It eliminates the problem of, what if this person doesn't wanna serve? I mean, if you want to be in a position, just self-nominate yourself. I don't know why there's a problem against self-nomination.
I don't think there is a
But
problem
there's
against
not, it could be either. I don't see why there's a problem with
We should, I mean, we should not preclude anything for nomination. If people want to nominate somebody, they should have the right to nominate them also, and if they elect to not accept a nomination, they could so speak.
So when we're nominating, do you want the nomination to be by roll call order? Because that was an issue that was brought up too. Or do you want to write it down and
I mean,
give it to legal counsel?
I would recommend against that because you want to keep the process open and have it
Yeah.
happen.
So can we
The-
agree on a roll call order?
Mr. Rufino had some concerns with, he said on previous boards that he served, that the chair never voted first because of undue influence, and so would it be safest just to go, well, I'm not gonna speak to alphabetical order, because I think I'm at the top of the list, right? But, let's go reverse alphabetical order.
Or why don't we just
Um,
say roll call order with the, and just make a general rule with the chair at the end? So no matter where the chair is on the board, on the roll call, they're
By
gonna
roll
be at
call
the,
order.
they're gonna be at the end,
I'm fine with that.
okay? So,
And the nominees can be either of the above.
yeah, self or by another board member. And then at the actual voting time, which would be the January meeting.
And I don't think we even need to take that up right now, in effort of time, because we could do that at the next meeting.
Well, we don't have a choice, the voting is in January, right?
Yeah, I know, but we have one more meeting, so we're dealing with nominations at the next meeting. So we could deal with the voting at the next meeting.
Okay, however, if there are nominations for multiple,
The nominations can sit until January.
okay,
I mean,
But can't we just answer the question of what the vote would be, so we don't have to put this on the agenda again?
I think,
put it on the agenda again.
well, I think a benefit of putting it on the agenda again is Frank's gonna be able to weigh in, since he brought it forward.
Okay,
And number two, I mean,
I'm sorry, I just don't understand it, so I'm good, all right.
so, but I think one of the things that we're all in agreement about is that if there are multiple nominees for a position, and even if there aren't, the person is going to give, their talk about why they want to be in that position. And then there would be voting. There would be voting on January, on the voting day, but it would have to literally be one position at a time, because if you're nominated for multiple things, so I don't know what there's left to decide.
You want to do the remarks.
The
on
remarks would
January.
be in January,
Once you know you're nominated for a
Right.
position, remarks, and then voting.
and then voting.
yeah, that's fine, we
It's
can
just
put,
vote
we
by
can do it
ballot
now,
or
and then
vote by
if there's,
roll call.
if he has an issue with it, we can agendize again if he wants to make some modification to it.
It's just either you vote by ballot or roll call.
Right, and then when we actually vote, are we gonna vote by ballot or by roll call?
What do you guys
Is there a
suggest?
preference?
Ken, you have a preference?
Well, it's, I think consistent with
Well, it would be read aloud anyway.
the public interest involved, it's probably better to state your vote on the record during a roll
Okay.
call. In addition, if you're using Robert's rules as a guide, technically, nominations never end under Robert's rules, and someone can vote for someone else that's not on the slate technically.
Okay.
So that eliminates that problem as well. So they give up that theoretical right to vote for someone that's not even in the ballot. Something like I guess you call it a speak-in, not a write-in.
Okay. All right, so obviously it's just gonna be,
So the tentative procedure would be nominations at the last board meeting of the year. The nominations would happen by roll call order with the chair always at the end. Number 3, the voting would happen in January, and the nominees would state their remarks, and then we vote for each position individually in roll call order with the chair at the end.
is that your motion?
Well, I'm just, I guess, because if there needs to be more
I'll-
discussion on it, yes, that's my
I'll
motion.
I'll second it.
Is there more discussion
She's hiding back there.
should be had?
Repeat those.
So nominations at the last board meeting of the year. Okay? Nominations can either happen by self-nomination or from another board member. Nominations will happen in roll call order with the chair at the end. January, voting will happen. All nominees, if they want to, which I don't know why they wouldn't, would give their remarks. And then we vote for each position one at a time, because there may be multiple nominees for different positions, and the vote will happen in roll call order with the chair. That
Is the vote for the chair position at the end, or the current chair votes at the end?
the current chair votes at the end.
Is there a specific order
No.
that the
Any specific of the officers, he's saying.
both
Is there
actually
a
both?
specific?
Is there a specific order that the officers need to be voted on?
Better
So
off with
you're
chair
saying
first,
should it
aren't you?
roll
Yeah.
call like alpha roll call with the chair at the
I
end?
think our
Yeah.
No,
manual
Yeah.
states
no,
chair
Corey's
first.
asking a different question.
Oh,
now.
okay.
Yeah, so we would vote chair, vice chair, and then secretary.
Yeah, in that
Oh.
order.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
And the chair would vote last
The
in each
chair
of
would
those.
vote
Yes,
last
the current
in
chair
each
would
of
vote
those.
for the okay.
Exactly.
The new chair would vote.
And then do you think it's helpful to clarify the voting order as well?
Excuse me?
Do you think it's helpful to clarify the
Yes.
voting order as well? So I would propose maybe alpha order with the chair last.
That's what
Okay, I just want to be clear.
I don't want to propose that because I'm at the top of the list unless
Alpha
some
order with the chair at
alpha
the end.
comes in.
So that's the motion. Any discussion?
We could flip.
Any public comment?
Unless you wanna know what we do.
What?
I said not unless you wanna know what we do.
What do you
No,
do?
you guys, they have a nominating committee in the slate.
Well, not anymore.
No?
No, now it's different, because now we have the smaller board since we did the reorganization. So we have it where the nominations come in beforehand.
Yeah.
And you could be nominated for more than one position.
Right.
So this way, if you don't get the first position that you want, you can go for the
Exactly.
second. So it's voted
Exactly.
top for president, then vote for the next position, then the next position, so you can move down.
That's exactly what we're suggesting. Yeah,
That's what we do.
exactly. All right, call for the vote.
Azalino, yes. Dane?
Yes.
Lickman? Sorry.
Yes.
McLean?
Yes.
And Gordon.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna take a 15-minute break.
Just kidding.